according to them, according to the doctors,
Are they doing anything that is illegal, really?
by going on strike and
Yes.
refusing to, offer assistance and care to the patients
Yes.
within
Are they doing anything that is illegal?
It's not illegal.
Yes. So where's the issue?
It's not illegal to go on strike. No, it's not.
Did they give notice? Did they fulfill the requirements of the law?
Well, they gave their 7-day notice. They
Well,
did.
I'm sure KNH will go to the court, and I'm sure we'll see what the court says. You know what the court usually says? Your strike is illegal.
Not always.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Right?
Yes. Not always.
If you haven't actually gone through the entire. So they say that their 14-day notice to protest failure to implement a state resolution that upgraded the hospital parastatal status. And their notice has expired. 14 days have expired, so we are proceeding on strike. What do they want? Implementation of resolutions from the State Corporation Advisory Committee passed in 2012 that upgraded the hospital's parastatal status from 3C to 7A. What does that mean, CT? 3C, 7A? What's a parastatal status?
It's a grading system.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means is, this is from a layman's perspective.
Yeah.
I am not an expert in this field, but from what I understand is this. The grading determines, one, the threshold of payment or salaries that you get.
Uh-huh.
Yes. What this is pegged onto, I'm not really sure, because I know, for instance, KRA and the central bank are at the top of this particular grading. And the people who work there, the benefits that they get, the salaries that they get are superior to everybody else. So I assume that KNH, being a parastatal, got its grade to the level of probably the central bank, which meant people are now going to be paid better. The better is normally determined by the person who receives the lowest pay. The lowest pay will be considered a very, very, very good pay. That's how it's done.
But so now here we have a situation. I mean, if they're at that level, then of course begs the question, why do we have these continual issues where they will come and strike? I mean, I don't think a year has passed since we heard of the last strike that happened at KNH.
Have you ever heard of the national, the Central Bank of Kenya employees threatening to strike?
Never.
Kenya Revenue
Hardly
Authority?
ever.
Have you ever?
They're happy. They're comfortable.
Kenya Ports Authority. Have you ever heard
They're
them threatening to go on
comfortable.
strike? They're once in a while, but I'm simply trying to say, if you look
Do
at
they
parastate-
belong to any union, though?
Who?
Central bank workers?
Yes, they do.
Which one?
I think the bankers.
There's a Kenya Bankers Union.
That one. They are bankers.
And the KRA?
And if not, then they belong to the one which encompasses civil servants. There is a civil servants union, you know.
Okay.
Yes. But it isn't a question of unions. Look, we sometimes forget that even Kenya Power, up to before the privatization, was a parastatal.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. We have many parastatals in this country. People just don't know. Kenya Seed is a parastatal. Okay? Parathanam Board is a parastatal. Now, many of these parastatals you never hear of because there's no problem. They exist. People
They're happy with what they're taking home, basically.
let's maybe not happy, but they have nothing to really complain about. Okay.
But also in today's strike, actually, it's not necessarily the doctors who are going on strike. Doctors are in a different union.
No,
right?
the doctors are very different.
This is Kudeha
The
workers.
staff,
This
yeah.
is the workers. The Kenya Union of Domestic Hotels, Educational Institutions and Hospital Workers Union, Kudeha. Those are the ones who are going on strike. So it's actually the other cadres of workers, not necessarily the doctors. So the doctors may still be working there.
These
but
are
then you will not
administrative
find-
people.
Yeah,
Okay.
and also
Remember
it's
when
not the
nurses go on
nurses.
strike,
Nurses are in a
yow.
different union.
Doctors and dentists and
It's admin
pharmacists.
staff.
Yeah. Yes.
It's admin staff. And they're saying, well, because of this circular that was issued in 2012, September 2012, that upgraded them from 3C to 7A, only the hospital chief executive officer and senior management who benefited from an increase in salaries and allowances. Is KNH being run by the management alone?
KNH
They
has a board.
asked.
They asked the question and they said, why is it only the CEO who needs to be recognized or considered when it comes to salary increment?
You know,
So they're quite pained about this particular
they are
issue.
paid. They definitely are, and they should be. KNH is an odd parastatal. You see, if you look at the institutions I mentioned, everybody's an administrator. KRA, KNH, I mean,
Central Bank.
Everybody's an administrator at different levels. But this one, there's a nice variety of categories. Yes. They are administrators. They are service providers, as in healthcare workers, and even then they are categories. Okay, so there are people in the labs, there are people in the wards, there are people. It's interesting. Then there are technicians. It's a whole different kettle of fish. So
Right.
so the managing of such an institution it can't be like any other institution, but they do have a point.
They do?
Yes, they do.
They do have a point.
They do.
All right. Looking at what else is happening in papers. Last week, we talked about the fact that a 72 million shilling heist took place at the Standard Chartered Bank in Nairobi West.
Oh.
And it seems that now they've been able to recover some of this money because the thieves were not very intelligent in the way in which they began to spend the money. And so far, 7 million shillings of the two has been recovered. Employees of the bank and security firm, among 20 arrested as investigators.
10%?
Yeah, about 10% so far.
Has been recovered.
Mm.
And you say they're not intelligent.
Who?
The thieves.
What I mean, they've left a trail, obviously.
Yeah, but
Sure.
where is the money?
I mean, what makes you think that isn't deliberate?
Yeah.
Oh, really? So have 10% of it will go off with the rest?
Yes.
Moving on, employees of bank and security firm, among 20 arrested as investigations show cameras had been switched off during the particular theft. So apparently investigations are continuing and they hope to recover more of this amount, I guess using the same tactics that they've used to find what they have found so far. Robbers who stole 72 million shillings last week had disabled surveillance cameras in 2 locations in a bid to conceal their identities. Investigations have been established that closed-circuit television or CCTV cameras were switched off. The robbers also tampered with cameras inside the bank. Moving on, so far we see this is one of the flaws in a robbery said to have been planned for almost 5 months that has led to the swift arrest of 20 suspects who include bank staff, employees of security firm G4S, as well as police officers.
So some cops have been arrested, all right? 2 cops were found with some cash, and they'd also bought a new car. And they say they were planning to cross into Uganda with this. And also some people who work at a garage because the alleged thieves had gone to a garage with a vehicle and said, I want you to paint this car from silver to black.
Right.
And CCTV from a nearby premise has actually caught them. All these things. But then we keep saying that they hadn't planned it all out. Well, maybe they had.
This was all part of the plan.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It could be just throwing you off in one direction.
Kind of like a Hansel and Gretel where they're leaving breadcrumbs to
yeah.
point you in a different direction.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
what
It's
is certain?
possible.
What is certain is this: if the enforcers of the law determine it so, they can actually act and bring culprits to book quickly.
If they wanted to.
Thank you, because this was swift.
This was quite swift.
Yes. So begs the question: how is it then that when monies that are in the tens of thousands, the multiples of tens and thousands of the amount that we're talking here, when it is lost, it takes so long for them to bring the culprits to book?
This is the question. And it's going to sound crazy because you're going to say just 72 million because that's where we've reached now in this society. We can call 72 million
Just.
chicken change. Just. We can say just 72 million. If you can find just 72 million or you can at least find traces of it in a matter of days, why then can you not apply the same kind of fervor to find the rest of these billions that seem to have disappeared into thin air?
I think fervor may be applied. It's just it's applied to ensuring that
They don't find the money. The fervor is applied to that they don't find the money.
Yes.
It's not that the fervor is not applied.
No.
Note.
a note. One of the things that I when I said I found things disturbing, it's matters such as this. If you look at it from the surface, it looks like, well, people stole, they got caught, people steal. But if you pause for a second and move out of the secular realm where, say, banks are robbed, I mean, I'll be talking about this later, but you look at, say, for instance, issues when they arise within the confines, say, of a church setting or a Christian church setting, and the infighting and just the horrible, terrible things that come out. And if you didn't know it was a church wrangle, you'd think it was a
Moi
committee. Yes,
Kiyomwere.
you'd think it yes.
A marketplace brawl.
Yes.
There we go.
So
marketplace brawl.
that's what I was thinking. You can't really tell, can you? You get to a point where you actually thought at some point that there ought to be a moral compass somewhere, and the moral compass has joined the fray. So the battleground, the issue that happened.
The truth north is facing south.
Yes, I mean, we'll be talking about this later, but in a church, during, and then fundraising.
Yeah.
So the fundraising has to come in. So you have to ask, if there's no fundraising, would there be this amount of hoo-ha?
Would we have all these issues?
Yes.
Nothing like that. You know that plant called the baobab, right? The tree.
Yes.
And
Tree of
then,
life.
and what comes out of it, which is what kids eat, mabuyu. Do you take mabuyu?
I think it's fantastic.
You like it?
Yes.
CT, do you take mabuyu?
I know what it is.
As a man who grew up for a substantial part of your life and actually even worked in the coast, I'm sure you also consumed quite a lot of mabuyu. I'm sure you did, CT, unless you didn't like it.
I didn't dislike it.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're just not a fan of it.
No.
I wish you did. So a new study conducted jointly in Nairobi and Kitui counties has revealed that baobab pulp is able to boost defenses against diseases and infections and reduce incidences of anemia in children. Yeah. The research was funded by the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. It was conducted among school children aged between 6 and 12 years over a period of 12 weeks. And it revealed that in those 12 weeks, their intake of calcium and vitamin C improved compared to those who did not receive the baobab drink. Pupils from Kamukuti Primary School in Kitui West and Heidi Marie School in Mathare, who took part in the study, received a cup of baobab fruit pulp that had been scraped from the seeds and mixed with water, honey, and mango flavor in addition to the school meal, githeri. Right? So it's become a superfood now.
It's always been a superfood. It's a tree of now people are coming to know about it. It's always been treated as a snack that's been colored. But actually, it has been referred to as a tree of life. The tree of life which produces now these nutrients for life. Pretty fantastic. So now watch the sales of...
Apart from calcium and vitamin C, what else?
Well, it talks about boosting nutrition, talks about assisting children who suffer from issues of anemia,
Right.
Generally, superfood.
Right. So you give it to kids all the time, eh? Oh. So we should actually now add it to school feeding program.
I see why not. We have...
we should do that. Makueni County has a lot of baobabs.
It's actually in abundance.
Right?
It's in abundance.
Kivuda Kibwana should look into this. Start, a value addition for baobab.
This discussion began some years ago around the neem tree, and people have taken the initiative. You have mosquito repellent that is neem based.
Yeah.
You have soap.
That's neem based.
Yes, you have oils. Yes. So, yes, the discussion is a worthy discussion. Now, this one is not depressing.
This is not depressing. This is actually the direction in which perhaps these are the steps I was thinking.
But it's depressing when you read that one of a supermarket chains called Choppies is laying off 200 people.
Yes, leaving the country, closing down operations in Kenya and actually exiting the country.
No sooner had they landed
than
they left.
The environment, they say, was not conducive for them to do business, number one. Number two, they said that they were not able to meet the profits that they were seeking to make when they came into the country. And unfortunately, they must go.
What does this say actually about our retail sector then? Look, our supermarkets, which supermarket has lasted more than 20 years?
Uchumi.
Right, Uchumi has lasted more than 20 years.
Yes. But we know it's crawling.
Yeah.
One could argue it's on its deathbed.
Uchumi.
For all intents and purposes, dead.
Yep. Let's just say that, right?
Okay.
So what does it say further about the retail sector then? Is what we're looking at.
It's not the retail sector. What is it that makes the retail sector survive? That's what you should ask. Because it's a place where people go to buy. So if people aren't buying, then the retail will shut down. It's not complicated. Yes. So what has happened to the buyers?
Over the years?
Over the years.
There's less money to be expended. Less expendable income?
Not very long ago, the reason why people rushed into opening supermarkets or hypermarkets, whatever you call them, was because for every supermarket that was open, somehow there was a niche market. There was a clientele who would readily go there and buy. Business people tend to do due diligence. They don't sort of rush. One could argue, sometimes they make mistakes. Not really.
No, they do mapping and they do market survey and all of this. They know what the environment is.
It was a good business.
Yes.
So then why is it not thriving?
Because again, I think
people don't have money.
People don't have money. The amount of expendable income has greatly reduced over the number of years. This is true. People do buy things.
So where are they buying the things that they buy?
They're not buying in the quantities that they were buying previously. I think that's what we're looking at, definitely.
Even the numbers of people who can buy have reduced. If the moment you talk about people being laid off, it means people who have incomes have decreased.
Yes.
And so people who can buy, the numbers have also decreased. It's basic logic. Eric, let me give you an example, for instance, okay? The region that I worked in for a long time, many of the people who were employed were employed in what people in Kenya like calling the NGO sector. But it's actually the sector that is donor funded. Now, when you're told donor funding is reduced by 40% or by another 20%, rest assured that the number of people who will lose their jobs are proportionate to that particular reduction.
Because we're looking at the thing that the first to go usually
Yes.
is the people now with salaries.
Yes.
Obviously, the first to go is that kind of
So
overhead.
if you have a region where, for instance, because of the HIV prevalence, many NGOs set up shop there. And if the funding goes down, it means automatically the number of people who are employed in this field will go down.
Will reduce. Yeah.
So the number of people who are likely to patronize the institutions we're speaking of will reduce. Those businesses will go down. Automatically they will go down. It follows.
Right. So generally, the funding that we're looking at, the income that people have.
Do you remember, Eric, last week when we were looking at Mumias and the clips we played, there were individuals who had shut down their shops. Why? An entire economy was dependent on the functioning of that particular factory. Why? Because people who worked there earned. The moment it shut down, it means there were no employees, no money to buy. Shop owner, shut down shop. Not complicated.
There you go. That's the reason why.
All right. So Choppy is leaving. Choppy is laid off 200. He's laying off 200 workers. 200, right? City?
Yes, 200.
200 workers. A lot of them. This is the Situation Room. Good morning. It's 20 minutes after 6 o'clock. You are in the Situation Room with Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Siti Muga, and Jerry Thorne. Jerry, good morning as well. How's your weekend been?
Good. Short.
Short, right? We were all talking about how short it was.
Shorter than usual.
Shorter than usual.
Yep.
Well, we are still on Sunday. Don't worry, tomorrow will be Monday. You're still in the weekend.
I'm here though. So
Yeah,
no.
good stuff. The issue of what happened in church yesterday is what we're gonna discuss in the next about 10 minutes and start going deep into it. But also let's look at what happened over the weekend. So ODM on Saturday held peaceful nominations in Kibra, right? And they picked the late Ken Okoth's brother Imran to be the ODM
The
flag
members of the party voted.
In a primary.
They didn't pick. Members of the party voted for.
So members of the party
Yes.
picked Imran.
I think they've learned their lessons
After a
from
vote.
previous
Yes,
nominations.
they voted and picked Imran as their representative, as their flag bearer in the November 7th by-election. No appeal was filed to challenge the ODM by 5 p.m. yesterday, the nomination. So everybody's happy so far.
No,
So far,
they're not necessarily happy, but you see, not having something to complain about doesn't mean you're happy.
kubali aishe.
Bas.
That's what they say.
Ndio hiyo.
Like kubali aishe. And Imran was very happy really when he got the nomination. And, he went out and said, give his thanks to the people of Kibra.
To my team, thank you for the great work. And thank you for believing in me. To the great people of Kibra, the battle is ahead of us on the 7th of November, 2019. We must keep the legacy of the late Honorable Ken Okoth alive.
Ninawashukuru sana kwa kuweka hadhi ya chama chenu ambacho tunakienzi, kwa kushiriki uchaguzi ambao umekuwa ni wa huru na haki, ambao umekuwa ni uchaguzi wa amani. Mheshimiwa Imran, mimi na kukongratulate kwa ushindi ambao umepata kwa sasa. Ongea na wenzako ambao mlikuwa nao katika kinyang'anyiro, wakaribishe katika timu yako. Tunataka tusonge mbele kama jamii moja, na tuwe na kampeni ambayo inaweza kurudisha hadhi ya wanakibra, kwa sababu nyinyi wenyewe mlisema mungependa mchague kiongozi nyinyi wenyewe.
Bringing all the party, all the candidates that put themselves forward, all of them by coming and becoming candidates under ODM and getting the ticket, that was quite a task in itself. And we congratulate all of them for participating. But now we have a winner. They have dispute mechanisms. They can go for that, as the SG has said. But when we've already finalized that our candidate is Imran or whoever, because if we have a dispute mechanism that the tribunal will listen to, whichever way we go as a party, ODM has to ensure that this seat remains with ODM.
Well, so we've heard Imran, we've heard the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, the Nairobi Woman Rep Esther Passaris. They're all really speaking very elated on Saturday night after this. So now the Kinyang'anyiro is open, right? Kinyang'anyiro is now open. So we wait and see. Like you said last week, let's see. ODM, now we know who the candidate is. We know who the Jubilee candidate is. We know who the ANC candidate is. We have 11 people who are contesting for this seat. It's going to be a hot one. And we'll be doing some debate with some of the leading lights in the candidates in coming weeks.
Good. Good. This one has begun on a good note.
Good. It
Yes.
has, actually.
It's a positive note.
Something more positive as well. You remember in 2001, there was a school dormitory fire in Changuli, right? So the families of the Changuli Boys High School students who died in a fire have received 53 million shillings in compensation after an 18-year wait. The 67 students died in the inferno whose cause has never been known. Hilary Kitata, the chairman of the Changuli bereaved families, thanked the government for its kind gesture, saying 95% of the affected families have received checks, while the remaining 5 are yet to produce documents proving to be bona fide recipients. 53 million has to be paid to 63 parents. 53 million to the 63 parents of the 67.
How did they determine
students.
this amount?
This actually came from court, right?
Yes, I'm just asking, how was it determined?
I'm not sure. I remember exactly how the court case went, but they were
Who's
awarded.
paying them?
They
The
were awarded.
government?
The government, yes. They were awarded this.
So it's about $1 million each or less, thereabouts.
Something like that, yeah. It's about $1 million each.
Can't
18 years
compensate,
later.
of course, for the lives of
After
your
18
loved
years.
ones.
Okay.
Not just after 18 years after the determination that you're to be paid, because 2019 minus 2001, what's your
18.
mathematic?
19 minus 1 is 18.
What's your mathematic?
2001.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is it. A lot has happened. Now in the counties, Nairobi City County Assembly is coming back after adjourning on August 8th. They've got a number of things that they're coming to discuss. One of them, Punguza Mzigo Bill. The other one is the Nairobi City County Finance Bill, the County Revenue Administration Bill, and the County Corporations Bill. A number of some serious work, things that they need to do. So first of all, Punguza Mzigo. Of course, there are those who have said, this thing, we're just going to make sure that it flops, of course. Just making sure that it flops. The other one they'll be discussing is the County Community Health Services Bill, which is seeking to give health volunteers medical insurance. Good move, right? So medical insurance in county hospital and county health facilities, at least to get some insurance, and that's something, medical volunteers. The other one is the County Revenue Administration Bill, which seeks to form a sort of a KRA within the county assembly, within the county of Nairobi rather. So we have a body that is mandated with collecting revenue on behalf of the county government. of
I
Nairobi.
thought every county had
They've got departments that
had a
collect.
treasury. They all have a treasury.
They've got departments.
So
that,
what is this unit going to do that the existing treasury doesn't do?
maybe better management.
Better management. Okay.
You have a unified body that actually just does all those things.
But my
You
friend,
see, right now, who collects? If you want a license, you go. There's a licensing department, like you told us. There's environment. Environment does its own thing. The land guys do their own thing. So we have various departments that are collecting.
that's
revenue.
that's under finance department. Why you hear me chuckling is this. Look, Jerry has told us on many occasions that the one thing the government doesn't do well is business. Okay?
It's communicate.
It's communicate, not business.
One of the things that the government doesn't do, then I am saying it, one of the things that the government doesn't do very well is business. They're not good. That's not their core mandate. Okay? So if you now set up another body to work alongside, besides, instead of a body which already exists and which by their own admission couldn't do what they're supposed to do, and so outsourced that particular revenue collection function. That's what they've done in the past, with disastrous consequences in many cases. So now they're going back to collecting revenue. The reason why the outsourcing was favored was because it was obvious, beyond obvious, that when the counties or the municipalities were left to collect revenue, the least beneficiary was the county or the municipality. That money went into people's pockets.
As is the case in
Directly.
many cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was no benefit at all. So again, if you tell us now that a new unit is being set to do whatever else that they're supposed to do, you actually expect that the results will be different.
Yeah. Be positive, Bana. Look, we
doing
have
the same thing.
It's not the
same way you've been doing it and expecting different results.
You're doing
Eric,
it-
explain that one.
You're doing it in
How?
a different way. You're creating a body called the County Revenue Authority.
Creating yet another body.
No, not yet another. You are creating one body called the County Revenue Authority. And the job of the County Revenue Authority is to collect revenue,
Okay.
right? It's just like we have KRA.
Okay.
It collects revenue on behalf of the national government of the country. That's
Okay.
it. That's all we're discussing here. It's not really. Let's not look at it from a negative light. Let's wait and see when the
But
debate
that
actually comes.
isn't negative, Eric.
It's not
we're-
negative, yes.
no,
it's from a point
we're-
of not understanding exactly what this
We're
means.
simply going by precedents.
Yeah, what has happened previously.
Yes.
So the matter is going to come up for debate. We'll actually follow it up and see what exactly is it that they're talking about. In fact, we should seek to understand exactly what this is all about. So I'll set out to do this.
Well, following Eric in
And-
putting up
and give you
fences.
the answers.
Yes.
Following Eric in putting up fences, a non-governmental organization has offered to build a 75-kilometer electric fence around the forest land along the Kenya-Tanzania border, and expected to cost around 100 million shillings to ease cases of human-wildlife conflict in the area. Farmers in Kajiado have had their crops destroyed by elephants, among other animals. Speaking at the site yesterday in Oloitoktok sub-county, where construction has started, Big Life Foundation founder said conflicts between people and wildlife currently rank top among threats to conservation in Africa. And he said within Kenya, with most of the wildlife outside protected areas, one of the challenges to conservation is how to sustain coexistence between people and wildlife. So it seems this is one case in the world where a fence is actually welcome.
Fences are good. Fences are good. This is the Situation Room. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning. You're with me, Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and CT Muga. And we'll shortly be discussing what happened yesterday in Keharo constituency, and then form a basis for discussing churches and all. Good morning. Keep it right here.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles. Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. Traffic.
The day has just begun, but traffic has made its debut on many roads this morning. Thika Road already a mess, and from Kasarani all the way moving towards the city centre, we have issues because Imeshikana, as is being said. Well, look, it's Monday morning. Everybody's back to school, back to work, so we expect these issues this morning. Ngong Road is still looking great at this hour, as is Mombasa Road, but it's likely to build up as more and more cars get on the road. That's the situation we're looking at right now. We expect that there will be some issues in the Westlands area because of what we have currently going on from Kikuyu leading down towards Mountain View. But we don't have any issues currently, aside from the expected on Jogo Road as well as Langata Road. But if anything changes, we will be sure to let you know. If you see something that we should know about, give us a call on 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
25 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning and how are you doing? This is the Situation Room. Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, CT Muga. And also we are live this morning on Facebook, on YouTube, Spice FM KE. We're having conversations as well on Twitter, Spice FM KE. Also, we are live on www.spicefm.co.ke. And our frequencies across the country, 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.6 in Malindi. This is the Situation Room. Now, there's something interesting that happened yesterday. Well, quite interesting, but shocking, annoying, disappointing, however you want to look at it. So there was a church service in Kiharu yesterday, right? And the church had invited some people to come in and help them with the fundraising drive. And the guest of honor was a politician. And the local politician came into the church and said, look, you guys need to recognize me as a local area MP. And I need to be the one who actually keeps calling everybody here, who recognizes all the other leaders who come to visit us. Of course, you raised that furore, but this is what happened.
Catholic faithful gathered at Gitui Catholic Church for Mass, as is the norm every Sunday. The Mass was followed by a fundraiser, which was attended by members of parliament from Kieleweke. When the politicians took to the podium, there was a dispute over who should invite the others to speak, an event that saw chaos and fracas emerge at the service. Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro insisted that he must introduce fellow members of Parliament, whereas nominated Member of Parliament Maina Kamanda insisted that he should do so as the chair of Central MPs.
Nimeona tumekusanya pesa mingi, lakini yeye alikuwa anataka kuiharibu. Lakini mimi nikaona ya kwamba nikienda kwa mienendo yake, anawaita watu kutoka town wakati kuna hubiliwa hapa, yeye naye nikuita anaita watu. Nikuita anaita watu kutoka town kuja kulete furugu.
According to those in attendance, Commander did not want Ndindi Nyoro, a close ally of DP William Ruto and a big critic of opposition leader Raila Odinga and his pact with President Uhuru Kenyatta, to be the MC for the event, despite other political leaders being in attendance. Speaking to Ndindi Nyoro on phone, the bone of contention was different.
So nikaanza kuita ma MPs, and I assured them that they'll speak, and they'll speak anything they want to speak about. So kuita wa kwanza wakakuwa hawafurahi, wanataka kamanda akakuwa very jittery. Wakaita bodyguards wao wakuja wanishike waniondoe. Na mimi nikaona wakiwaita na nikasema mnaita mapolisi ni sawa, lakini mimi nitafanya tu kazi yangu.
Murang'a Catholic Bishop James Maria Wainaina has condemned political activities in churches while urging leaders to observe decorum.
That's it.
That isn't it. That is part of it.
This is the beginning.
Not the beginning, the continuation, really.
The continuation of part of it.
Yes. You see, you would anticipate that a function such as this one within a church setting would achieve its goal. People would come, politicians, they are members of the church, they are part of the public in a sense, contribute, whatever was required. But when you find this sort of disagreement playing out in church, now, if you look at we pause for a second, put that on pause and look at just the recent past. The umbrella body of the Christian churches within Kenya, the NCCK, had something similar. Mm-hmm. Came out in the public. Not so pleasant. In between there and just before it, the Seventh-day Adventist Church had similar issues. There are those who will tell you, well, it was the Rich Church, which is in Nairobi. It is the SDA Church.
Yeah.
But if you pause and just look around you, the sort of fracas that you see surrounding individuals within churches makes you pause and wonder whether our church leadership has lost its moral compass. Now, any Kenyan you talk to will tell you Kenyan is a Christian nation. How they define it, I don't know. But if you actually look at our population and you look at the religions we have in this country, 83% of the population of this country, 83% will tell you they're Christians. The population as follows. You'll find those who belong to the so-called mainline Protestant church, 47.7%. The Catholics, 23.4%. Other Christians, meaning the evangelicals, independent churches, independent Christian sects, etc., 11.9%. The Muslims comprise 11.2%. Traditionalists, meaning those who understand that nature has to be given its rightful holy place, at 1.7%. Others, meaning those whose faith cannot be easily defined.
Atheists, perhaps.
Atheists, perhaps. That is a faith. She's right. Or Satanists and the like.
No, you don't want to liken the two, but go on.
But it is
the
a
others.
faith. The others.
It's the others.
There are people who subscribe to these things. It may be abhorrent to you, but there are people who subscribe to it. That is 1.6%. So Kenyans call themselves and refer to themselves as a Christian nation. Now, if you look at the tenets of Christianity, they are not secret, they are obvious. And why these things are alarming is because they seem to go against the very tenets that that particular faith is based on, completely. See, the Christian faith doesn't talk about loving each other. It says love your enemy. 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 Standard. Basic standard. Do good to those who hate you, not those who love you. Okay? Those are basic tenets
love
of
your neighbor
faith.
As yourself.
Yes.
Then
that follows. Do unto others. Now, so when you look at what's happening within the churches, it becomes very, very difficult to determine whether our churches have gone completely and absolutely secular or secularism has become religious. You're not really certain. But the two seem to have meshed and they seem to be one and the same thing. Now, what seems to be obvious and clear, our pronouncements, our deeds are congruent. They are not, they are parallel. Now, this is usually what we refer to as hypocrisy. When you say this and do the other. But it also points to the fact that we are conflicted. There's something that we seem to pursue and something seems to hold us back and we're not certain as to where to make a stand. Because all these people we read in the papers, these are Kenyans, people who, like the recent heist of the 72, if you look at those and ask the individuals, they will tell you not only are they Christians, they'll also tell you they're church going. If you look at all the individuals in the last 3 months who've been mentioned, including our governors, they will tell you they are Christian. Where on earth, where on God's good earth did the Christian tenets go to? Because the one thing that happens as a result of all these things, the so-called mwananchi, the downtrodden citizen who actually is in need of support and help, suffers the most. Because the very thing that they are supposed to gain, that's the thing they don't. One assumed that the church was the bastion of refuge, the last place of refuge where one could go to if one had a problem. Now, amidst all these problems that we read of, when I talk about a moral compass, something that I was discussing with my colleagues this morning, that actually, now this one didn't alarm me. This one actually stopped me dead on my tracks. Okay, the sort of fame and infamy that we are acquiring in this country, there is thankfully, the internet has many hubs. One of them is called a porn hub, meaning it's a hub for pornography, okay? And Kenyans were listed, not among, we were leading in terms of viewership, people who subscribe to this particular hub.
The same Christian nation,
if
83%.
Let's talk about statistics.
Okay.
Let's assume everybody else, the traditionalists and all those other numbers that I said were...
The 1.2.
Yes.
Pornography unchristian?
Pornography is unchristian, yes. Okay. If you look at the Christian tenets, it is unchristian. This one doesn't even have an if and but about it.
Yeah. But where does it say that in the Bible?
That there's no pornography. Where does it say in the Bible that you shouldn't smoke?
Your body is the temple of God. You can translate that to mean don't harm it, so don't smoke. So with regards to pornography, what are you referring to in the Bible?
You are suggesting that it's useful for the body.
No, not everything that you do has to be useful. You and I being here is not particularly useful for the body.
I am actually following your argument, but with the definitions
no.
that you gave.
You've created a fallacy there. It's not harmful. Pornography is not harmful for the body. In fact, one can argue that it's needed. I don't want to go into that argument. What I'm asking is where in the Bible it says pornography is bad.
I'm going to use the same term that you use as your body is a temple of the living God, isn't it? If it is a temple, what pornography does, apart from what you see, is what it does to your mind. What it inculcates in your mind and what that eventually leads to. That's where the harm is.
Which is what?
I'm looking for a word that is polite enough for me to say in a public.
So you're saying it's what it could lead to?
No, I'm saying it's what it leads to. Not
okay.
What
what if that doesn't happen?
All right. Let me carry on with
what
my
if that
discussion.
doesn't actualize?
One of the things that that brought this discussion is the use of Viagra. It was assumed that people who have reached a certain chronological age would use it to sort of like boost their love life.
Right.
But what statistics show is that the people who actually use Viagra are young people. Young people, very, very young people. And many of them use it even before their debut, before their first sexual encounter, they use it. And part of the reason is because the influence of porn has focused on performance, not relationship, performance, sexual performance. So here you are having many people using something that actually should be prescribed. But they're popping it. So it then becomes something, it then becomes a health hazard. And not for a few people, for very many people. Now, the influence of the mind often brings and will bring about undesirable action. Now, this is what I am saying. Now, she asked me a question and I responded. Okay. There are many things that the Bible will not outline.
Then
and
it
say,
might as well condemn.
There was no pornography in the time the Bible was written. But if you look at the harm it caused, the harm, that is now what you work against.
Bringing it back to the church and what you were raising about.
I am saying...
what was it that you were raising about the church? Is it about church leadership?
I'm saying
a
large population of this country claim to be Christian. And I am saying there is an absence of moral guidance. Because relationships, which ought to be at the core of how human beings relate to each other, seem to be going to the dogs among young people. And I'm using this as an example of, referring to it clearly as waywardness. Your relationships with the members of the opposite sex or the sex you choose is determined by performance, not how you get along. Hence the popping of Viagra.
I think performance is just but one pillar. There's a number of pillars, but those are relationship issues. But with regards to the church, yes, they're definitely a brilliant platform, of course, for leaders to come and influence their potential voters. And I think that's where the question of separation of church and state comes in. Should we be allowing political talk and political rhetoric and political leaders to make statements in church, given that the church, by virtue of the fact that people are in the church, there's already a sense of authority by whoever then speaks to them. The church, of course, is regarded as the custodian of truth, so whoever's speaking to them is even more authoritative than other platforms, considering people are also a little bit more malleable and susceptible to influence and open whilst in church. And people are going to learn the word of God. So when you start to align leaders, political leaders, with the word of God, it can be very misleading. So should we be allowing politicians in church to speak?
When did this habit begin? Because it seems to be, I'm calling it a habit because it's something that now is happening quite
Yeah,
often.
there used to be an element of shame in it where people were quite subtle about it and they would hint and it would be a bit of rhetoric. But now it's all out sort of
and there used to be some sort
politics.
of order as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and you'll find it a lot. In fact, I'm surprised that the event that happened yesterday was happening in a Catholic church. Because the Catholic Church in one way has tried to maintain that order.
And structured,
absolutely. We're going to have a service, you're going to have a service. In church, if you'd like to speak, you're going to speak after the service. Or outside the church. And I think this is what also happened. But the Catholic Church, in this particular case, this particular church had invited certain political leaders to come in and help them in a funds drive.
What is the Catholic Church, sorry to criticize the church, what is the Catholic Church doing raising funds? This is the richest organization in the world. We don't need to be raising funds. We've got to question that too.
How not? But Jerry, think about it.
How did you determine that?
I mean, the Vatican is the richest organization in the world.
Jerry
Absolutely.
is someone who understands and champions capitalism. How do the rich maintain their wealth?
By getting more.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We don't need to be raising funds.
So back to the issue, like why do we now have, not just in even funds drives, why do we have politicians actually speaking in church? Because that's where
as I say, it's a good platform. Everybody's
they've
there
they've gotten to a point where they've assumed that the way I behave in a public rally is the way I'll behave here. I've got people. This is not a church. This is not hallowed grounds and everything. I'll come in and make my political pronouncements here. And
I don't think they see. I think we've got to the point where political leaders do not see church as hallowed ground. It is just another platform upon which they can spread a particular or send out a particular message or spread a particular agenda. When they're there speaking or when they're there pushing this, whatever it is that they will push, they don't look and say, "Oh, I'm in church. This is one thing I must think or not think about." It's people they see that they can influence in one way or another. And unfortunately, that's the situation where we've gotten ourselves into, whereby it's no longer hallowed, it's no longer sacred. The shame of it does not play in any way, shape, or form. And so we have leaders in the church who've mixed with this political leadership at the same time. And so the issue of it being sacred has been thrown out the window a long time ago.
Have you considered that what perhaps we're seeing in this country is that we are acquiring a new faith. It's called politics. And yes, and it's a religion that many people subscribe to, and it has a large following. And so what you're seeing are the tenets of one religion or one faith
taking over.
Yes, and competing with the tenets of another, because it's for the same souls that they're fighting.
They're very keen as well. I mean, it's not just that they have an audience in terms of numbers, but of course it looks like they're being endorsed by God by standing up at the podium in church.
Absolutely. Actually, that's a good point, because when political leaders stand up, they talk with even more authority than our religious leaders.
And there's less resistance because there's the guilt. You know, there's that authority is rubber stamped by being in church, further rubber stamped.
Have the church leaders then lost the stewardship?
That's what I was saying, wasn't I? They lost it.
This is it.
It went. The horse bolted a heck of a long time ago.
Church leaders have lost it.
They lost it.
They've
in terms of influence, they still have it. Or are you saying the influence is now negative, or it's not controlled, or
they've lost the meaning of what they're supposed to do by allowing politicians.
Are they perhaps evolving with the times and changing and moving with societal attitudes?
They may very well be evolving, but remember the tenets of the Christian faith don't really the tenets.
It doesn't allow.
No, it doesn't evolve. It evolves.
So where does pornography come into it?
It evolves in terms of application, but
the very foundation it would never change.
Yes.
But here we have a situation where church leaders, unfortunately, have been compromised to the point whereby it's proverbial fence sitting. We've not taken a stand to say, yes, these foundations that CT speaks of, to say that now here we are in a situation where we're not moving on our foundation, but because they didn't take a stand from the very beginning, it's easy then to be tossed about when one person comes in and says, allow me to speak so that I can help you raise funds. You see what we're saying? This individual is here to help me raise funds, which I've seen as the most important thing. So everything else that comes in place that will allow me to get to the end goal of raising these funds, I will then allow into the doors of the church, which should not be the case.
And they come and speak however they want to speak. I mean, sometimes look, they lost their
they
decorum
take charge
yesterday. They completely lost of decorum yesterday in what was happening in church. So one member comes and says, because I'm the local person, I'm the one who's supposed to be calling you.
That's a church.
I'm going to behave
Why
like
didn't
the
they
MC.
plan it beforehand? Just, sort of back to basics. Forget philosophizing over this
Yes.
question. Why didn't they just decide beforehand who was going to speak?
I think it was decided.
It was decided.
All right.
It was decided.
And then this guy runs in. And
This is what caused the contention
Yeah.
because it was already agreed from the beginning, and then somebody comes in and wants to take over, and they say, no, we're not
The
going
way-
to allow this to happen.
The way I see it, Jerry, so I am the father in this church, so I invite you, Jerry, to come and be the guest of honor. I
Right.
know very well that you belong to Kieleweke. I know very well that...
Which I do, actually, but,
I know very well. I also know very well that the local MP belongs to Tangatanga, all right? And then I've invited you. So therefore, I've told you come as the chair, as the guest of honor. Of course, the guest of honor is going to be given the opportunity to introduce the people that he has come with and also to lead. That's what the role of the guest of honor is. I'm going to lead in this funds drive. So when the local MP comes and says, no, you guys are from Nairobi, I'm the one who belongs here. I'm the one who's going to be saying, all right, all of you guys give me your names.
Right.
I'm
Well,
going
he
to
was,
recognize
from a political perspective, he was stepping on his turf if he's not from Nairobi, just by virtue of speaking to his constituents in that sense. And that's, politicians are very guarded about their constituents. I can't go and, if I'm the MP of Embakasi, I can't go and start making speeches in Kibra, for instance. Those are my people.
Why?
Because those are my people. They're my constituents.
What is
Remember,
my
it's all
people?
about influence. What are you coming to do in my constituency?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you not have your own constituency to look after?
The people of your constituency have invited me. They have made a choice.
It's not that they didn't know you existed.
Yeah. They've made a choice. They've invited me.
Remember-
I think it's an unspoken convention within the political world that you don't go to other people, whether or not you're invited. And of course, here he was enticed with money. Well, he enticed the church with money, so to speak.
Entice the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he
So
was the vehicle.
Yeah,
to
it's protocol. It's protocol. So I think that's where the discord came from initially.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily a church thing. The church just provided an arena for these politics to play out. But I think by him actually going to somebody else's constituency, although I side with him, and in fact I agree with his philosophy and Kieleweke, I think of course he crossed the mark.
Is a
there.
philosophy.
Let me
It's a
ask you,
philosophy.
The church should not be, however, used as an arena where these politics should play out. It should not
what
be the
I'm
place
wondering
where
is,
it's
this
done.
is a church function.
Yeah.
The jurisdiction of the church is really separate from that of the political realm. So you're saying that the MP for the area has jurisdiction over
Over
that
the church.
parish.
Exactly.
So what does the father? What's the
In
father's
an
function?
unspoken way. I mean, they've voted him to lead them. What does leadership entail?
it's
It
true.
entails decision making to a certain extent. It entails, of course, provision of services and so on. But in terms of influence, you cannot go into somebody else's constituency.
So then who should
You
be
simply
leading
can't.
whom?
You politicians,
Who should be leading whom? If we're looking at a situation where the church is guiding from the moral point of view, then we are now saying at the same time that the political leader then has jurisdiction even
As I told
over the
you-
church.
In my opinion, I think the political leader has more legitimacy. He has been voted in. I think in terms of as a democracy, let's not be handcuffed to the church for the sake of being
No,
religious. Or
in this particular
as a
instance,
democracy,
in this
From a
church-
I think
country
the
that is
political
hinged
leader
from a
has
country
more
that is-
legitimacy.
In
from a
this
country that is
church-
hinged morally and religiously to Christianity.
But this is about leadership.
In this
Yes, it
church,
is.
in
It's
this
not
church,
about-
the people of that area have chosen to come to this church.
They have
All
also
right?
chosen this leader. They have
chosen their
elected
leader.
him. They have not elected.
Also, the people of this church have decided that we want to have a funds drive
Yes.
for whatever project.
Yes.
The people of this church have decided we want to invite so and
And
so
so.
to come
And help us
and
raise
help
this
us
money.
raise
Of course,
these funds.
of course.
The
What
people of this
transpired?
church have decided that this is a person we want to come and help us. All right?
Absolutely.
Now,
and
when you've been
Commander has
invited-
every right to be
Okay.
there. I'm talking about nuances
Sawa.
and unspoken
So
conventions.
let's go into the nuances. When you've been invited as commander, is it your duty then to start ticking the boxes and says, all right, so have you guys have you made sure that
But you have been
informed?
invited also
Have-
because
have
you're bringing money.
Have you
So
made
they
sure
might
that-
also there might be undue influence and coercion.
But Jerry, it's a fundraising.
Of
You
course
have
you're
to
bringing
bring
money.
money.
No, you have created a fundraising so that you can go.
He
It works
did
the other
create the
way. He
fundraising.
did.
The church
He created a
created the
fundraising.
fundraising.
It was the church's
What
fundraising. They
what
brought
Commander
this
did in
individual.
terms of going on to Ndidi Nyoro's turf, wrong.
You see,
It's
this
it's
is the
a it's a
point.
it's a faux pas in politics. It's completely you do not
And
do
this
that.
is- and this is where
in fact, you have
politicians-
Unukambani. You see it a lot more because there's a lot of psychophancy. You cannot step across the border to make a speech. You will be stoned by the constituents. You cannot.
Yeah, because you haven't been invited.
Also,
if you've been invited by these people, right, and you've come in here, you see, these are politicians start to behave like they own the entire. You do not own the entire space,
and you don't own those people either.
And you don't own the people. The people actually own you because they're the ones
absolutely.
who
All
chose
this
you.
is right and logic in the real world. What I'm saying, in the world of politics, what Maina Kamanda did in stepping on Ndindi Nyoro's turf is it's a faux pas. He's gone against the rules of politics, unspoken conventions.
However, it's
and
okay.
This is where the tassels are coming in.
It actually isn't okay. What Jerry is telling us is what politicians have labored to ensure becomes the norm. And we're saying that is not the norm.
No, it shouldn't be. I don't necessarily agree with it. It's not a position I push.
Even separate the church and the state. Why?
Because they know that we want to stay away from these muddy waters that we've seen play out yesterday.
Why do they want to separate the church and the state?
Yes.
Because what of those who don't believe in Christianity? Why should the minority be felt like they're not wanted? State matters are very different from religious matters. There was a time, yes, when the church was the custodian of truth. But state matters are very, very different.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't want the minority to develop the sense that they're
so then these matters should not be played out in the church.
Yes.
If that is the case,
we've got a number of conversations
yesterday.
happening at the same time, right? So one is whether it was right for Maina Kamanda to go when he's been invited.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, should he have informed Ndindi Nyoro? Number three, should the church have allowed Ndindi Nyoro to be the one who's actually like the MC of the funds drive? But also, the main question that we're asking is, should the church allow politics in church? Has the church lost their moral compass?
Should politicians participate as congregants, or should they come in there in their political capacity?
In their political capacity into church. This is the conversation that we're having this morning. And we'd love to know what you think as well. 0719-012-600, 0719-012-600, and Spice FM KE Twitter, Spice FM KE Facebook, Spice FM KE on YouTube. We are transmitting there live, www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the Situation Room. It's 7 o'clock.
Looking at the roads this morning, specifically Thika Road, we're going to have an issue there because all the way from Roy Sambu, apparently people are saying it is definitely a Monday. Everybody was asleep and then suddenly everybody is on the road. So that is causing some problems today. You're going to have to take it slowly, be patient. We've had an accident in addition to the construction happening on Wayaki Way, coming from the Uthiru flyover. And this has happened this morning, and it is, exacerbating the traffic situation. So now, Wayaki Way and Thika Road so far are giving us problems. Everything else is moving along swiftly. Mombasa Road, not so bad. It's not at a standstill yet because the cars are moving, heading out towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Langata coming down towards the T-Mall roundabout also is not so bad. Moving slowly, but moving surely this morning. Ngong Road, we have a bit of an issue with the expansion of the road coming down where the Japanese meet the Chinese, as it were. Let's see what happens as we come out towards the City Mortuary roundabout. But apart from that, nothing else alarming. If you do see something that we should know about, give us a call to keep you moving. 0719-012-600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only
2
way to
minutes after 7
start your
o'clock. Good
day.
morning, and how are you doing? 97.6 in Malindi, 90.9 in Nyeri, 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, 94.4 in Nairobi, and 87.9 in Mombasa. We are streaming live on Spice FM KE on YouTube, Spice FM KE on Facebook, www.spicefm.co.ke. The conversation is also on Twitter. Is it right or wrong for the church to allow politicians to come and bring politics into church? That's the conversation we're having this morning. And we're opening the phone lines as we go along with this debate and conversation. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. From Mombasa, we have Stanley. Stanley, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. You well?
Yeah,
Mombasa kwa ambaje?
Ni kuzuri.
All right.
Joto.
What do you have to say about religious leaders and politics?
Yeah, my take is, I think it's an unfortunate situation where we have also the religious leaders who are supposed to be neutral going into a political alignment. Because the fact is, this was a church. At the same time, there was invitation of the leadership, maybe the local or even the team from Nairobi, that is the other MPs. Now, the rule usually, what one of you has said, is the unspoken rule of maybe when politicians go to a place, they have the courtesy of maybe identifying the person who represents in that place. But it appears to me, even the leadership of the church were already in the sight of commander. And my take was, I'm not so sure if also the leadership of the church was also in the same side of the church members. Because at the end of the day, the church members also defended the Kiaro MP, that is Nyoro. So was in which side? And so those are some of the things that we need to discuss also. Was the leadership of the church or the clergy in the same side with the church members? Thank you.
Interesting point he raises, but are we saying religious leaders, when he says they must be neutral, do they not have the freedom of expression to choose what party they belong to?
They do. Should they do it in church?
Why not? That's where they belong, that's where they work.
No, they belong to the community.
What that man says, look, the thing about church, it's supposed to be the neutral place where everyone with their divergent views and can come to one commonality. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be a unifying force. If the church leaders then openly come out and show their support for whoever it is, it'll be seen as dividing the flock.
Or leading the flock. If
Dividing.
they're supposed to be following them, it's then for you to follow what my thoughts are politically as well.
Divide and
I
rule.
think there is a place, believe it or not, I think there is a place for politics in church. Given the nature of our societies and how we're evolving, the church must evolve and move along with the times and reflect societal attitudes. People are talking, because people have the will to leave. You can stand up and walk.
Politics is a new thing.
You can stand
Or
up
it's
and
new in
walk out
it's
of
new in
church.
church.
People are more
It's
politically
evolution.
charged. They're more involved with democracy, with the media and what it feeds us. So you do have the option to stand up and walk out of the church. You're making it seem like people are sat there shackled to their chair and they must listen to this
that's
person.
what you're doing.
If you completely disagree with what's being said in church, you have the option to walk out. And you can say this is a platform also to, the church has a duty to inform.
Let's
So
see
you
what-
can say that is what they're doing.
Let's hear what Solomon has to say. Solomon in Mombasa. Good morning, Solomon.
Good morning. How are you, Eric?
Very well, thank you. You're in the Situation Room. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Now, what played yesterday actually is so unfortunate, because we don't expect such a thing to happen in a church. A church is a place where people go to get hope,
Spiritual
to see
nourishment.
and to spiritual nourishment. I mean, for that matter. And you see, politics being played in church is not one of the best things that can happen to us, especially for people who actually go there for spiritual nourishment. Do politics after the church. You will not have seen such a thing happening in a mosque. Why? Because they consider a mosque a holy place, and they'll not allow it. Why are we allowing it in church? The pastor should actually stand their ground and say no politics, and they mean it, no politics. Even if it's an issue of money, people give offerings. And if you're genuine in how you handle the offerings and also the tithe, people will give more. People need not to be coerced. And being a religious country, as we say, and as a Christians, and we follow the tenets of the Bible, these things should not be happening. And we need to be true to ourselves and do what is expected of us as Christians.
And Unless the church can completely separate itself from state, which it doesn't in Kenya, then you must allow for politics to come into the church. Because if the church has a say even in the constitution, if they want that privilege, then they must accept the responsibility.
You know, Jerry, it's not a question of the church allowing politics. The church itself has its own politics. And the politics within the church is what we see playing out every so often, like the examples I gave earlier on within the SDHI. Yes, that's church politics. And it isn't less vicious than what you see in the secular world. So if you're talking about politics, even the churchgoers themselves are already enmeshed in this church politics, because it's a question of voting in who, voting in for this, having this sort of committee. There is politics within the church. And it has always been. Now, if you talk about the Catholic Church, if you understand the history, the papal states, not state, the Pope ran states. They had them, papal states. And it was run like any other political entity. The only thing was that the head happened to be someone who had some religious backing. Now, the way it was understood was that he was a descendant of St. Peter's, meaning his position was not something you're going to question. Sorry.
You knew.
From God direct. It's not something you're going to sort of like question. Now, the evolution you speak of, it happens. So long as there are human beings who are involved in that process, the evolutionary process will take place.
It's always going to take place.
It will take place.
I think the question was it, for example, looking at the Catholic priest for this particular church, was it all right for the leadership of this church to bring in politicians and say, you politicians are going to do this, knowing full well, like Jerry, you're trying to say that, you know,
you can't have your cake and eat it.
Brought in your influence, knowing full well who these politicians are and what they stand for. Maybe they shouldn't have been allowed to come in the first place. They should have been told, well, we are inviting you, but these are the clear rules, and set out the clear rules. This is church. You're coming in. You are an influential person in society. That's why we are inviting you.
By the very nature of the politics in Kenya, they should have known that this, I mean, if you're going to use that as a way in which they'd have gotten around this situation, they knew the individuals that they were calling in, and by very nature, they're very clear. And they knew the situation that would, you could almost guess a kind of situation that would arise just from that. So bringing them into this arena was definitely going to get you the results that we saw today. And if we say that it is a place for spiritual nourishment, do you think that any kind of spiritual nourishment happened yesterday during this service that we're talking about?
Maybe
and
earlier,
if we're looking
during the Mass.
And if we're looking at a fundraising, and you say that we're trying to raise funds for X, Y, Z, and say that it is only this political leadership who can get this political leader who can get us to the amounts that we're trying to get into. This is why I'm saying that we've already compromised. We've already been compromised, even as a church leadership from the very beginning. Because if you say it is only them who can bring us or take us to that particular goal, then we also have a problem.
You know, if we go back to the days of, and we've had these conversations before, if we go back to the days, let's say the late 80s or the early 90s, when the church was getting a lot involved in how the country is being run, right? Remember the Archbishop Manasseh Kuria of ACK. Remember Bishop Alexander Muge, who died. Remember Bishop Okulu. Remember all these church leaders who were there. In their days, when they stood at the pulpit, and Joya as well, right? And Dingi Mwananzeki.
Yes. Yeah.
In those churches, we did not have politicians speaking.
I don't think those days we had any politicians.
We did have very many politicians. That's
there was
the
very
time.
Little opposition.
It was no. That was
Mm.
actually the time when the opposition was very, very hot.
Yes,
it was very vibrant. That's the time when we were pushing for change
there
of.
wasn't a vocal opposition per se.
There
was.
That is when actually it was thriving. And that's why the church was taking a stand and supporting the politicians who were pushing for this. But those politicians, the Kenneth Matibas, the Paul Moites, everybody else, the Jaramogis, the Railas, were not speaking in church. They were not participating in funds drives. They were not speaking at the end of church. You know, being recognized, we recognize the presence of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, who is very influential in this country. It didn't happen.
This is why I say the minute where we let it in, the minute where the leadership let down its guard, the leadership of the church specifically let down its guard and let the first person come in and speak and then propel the political ambitions, whether they be ambitions, whether they be agenda, whether they be certain initiatives, this is where we saw everything come down. This is where we saw now arena had been opened and all the gladiators is coming to play when now we're taking that over the spiritual nourishment, which we say is important within the four walls of the church. You know, this is what happened.
They can't be accepting money and hoping for anything different.
This is why I'm saying there has been a compromise.
Have your cake and eat it.
There has been a compromise.
You invite somebody to help you raise funds. And the other thing with inviting people to help raise funds, maybe it also pulls people in as well for the church. So it's not just them using the podium, the platform, the church platform. Maybe the MP also brings in people by them knowing.
So the church leader is using this to also advance the church.
Also advance, which is part of the doctrine of religion. Bring in as many people
he's
as you can. There is that possibility.
It's
but
true,
also
there's a
moving on
possibility.
from the 80s and 90s.
Let's hear what Margaret has to say before you move on to your point. Margaret is calling in from Kiambu County this morning. Good morning, Margaret.
Good morning, sir.
You said you're calling from Githurai, right?
Yes, from Githurai.
Welcome to the Situation Room. Eric Latif, Njeri, Thorn, Ndu Oko, and Siti Muga are here with you. What do you have to say about what we're discussing?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to talk about the pornography issue.
Okay.
I happen to be a Christian. I'm born again.
Yes.
Yeah, and about pornography, it is also bad for Christians to watch. It actually defiles.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I say so? Because the Bible states very clearly that when a man looks at a woman, just a woman, a dressed up woman, and in his mind thinks of having sex with that woman, already he has done it in his mind. Now, looking at a naked person already performing the act, what damage does it do? Don't you see it is even worse?
Mm-hmm.
And then also the thought even when you're watching it, what goes through your mind is defiling you actually, and you are sinning against God. So it is sin.
So Jerry, continue.
Yeah, and also concerning whatever is going on, I would like to give an example of our church. I don't say it is perfect, but at least on that side we have tried. Mm-hmm. Our pastor uses our tithes and offerings. He rarely, actually, for the 10 years I've been there, I've never heard of a fund drive. Even when the politicians come there, they will just sit there and watch, and they will never be asked for any help that, we are doing this. No. They will only ask them if they have anything to say and greet the people, and they greet the people, and the pastor makes it clear that you are not supposed to do any politics in church. This is church. We worship God. And if he knows it's any person who is troublesome, that person he will stand next to the person, and if he goes any further, that person the microphone will be taken away from that person.
So the leader of the church is actually very strict on this.
He's very strict on that, and he's very careful about that. And actually, right now, our church is growing so fast. It is Kimbo Pefa Church, just right there at Progressive. We have projects that we just use the church funds that the people have given, and that has helped people to give more. I heard someone saying that one of you, I think, say that when either one of you or somebody who called, he said when we use our tithes and offerings right, we'll encourage even the people to give more, and that is what is exactly happening in Kimbo Pefa Church in Githurai.
Asante sana, Margaret. Thank you very much for calling in this morning and for your contribution. We wish you a great day.
You too. Thank you.
This is Spice FM. Good morning.
Yes, I'm Richard Monen. I'm calling from Kilifi.
Yes, Richard.
Allow me to contribute to the current debate.
Mm-hmm.
My view is that indeed Nyoro was very wrong to cause such an altercation in church. After all, he was not invited. The list of those who were invited for the function was very clear, and they should have allowed Minor Commander to lead the fundraising. Number two, the church also needs to separate politics from this fundraising. If it's a governmental issue, let's not side with one side. For instance, it looks like it was siding with the Minor Commanders group. The church is indeed in Nyoro's constituency.
Yep.
They should have informed them in advance that we are going to have a function here, and Minor Commander and the company are going to preside over.
Okay.
And if he was not informed, then you see up to there. He was at of course, was not right to cause an altercation, but they had also sidestepped him. A function in his constituency, he ought to be informed.
Well, you know, okay, go
yes.
ahead, Richard. I just want to ask you, Richard. So, are you saying are you saying that because you've been elected, anything that happens in this constituency, you must be informed?
You must be informed.
Why must you be? Why must you be informed of everything that's happening in your constituency? If it doesn't involve, if it's not about legislation, if it's not about legislation or things like that, why must you be involved?
You see, you have to be informed because it's about the politics and influence, as one of your participants has said. Once Maina Commandant comes and I don't know whether they are in Kerewek or Tangatanga, but with whatever side they support, you see they will come with such influence and they will pull political mileage towards their side as they preside over the function. And so Ndindi Nyoro must be informed so that also his side is well taken care of.
All right.
You see?
Think of it this way as well. Ndindi Nyoro was not elected unopposed, right?
Of course.
He had opponents in the last election that got him elected. So are you saying that now because you've been elected, your opponents cannot organize, cannot have any meetings?
And if they have a meeting, they must invite you.
And if they have a meeting, they must invite you.
Or inform you.
Yes, they must not invite you, but they must inform you. That we are
But
true.
I thought that is what you, my brother, I thought that is what you did with the chiefs. You told the chief or the representative of the national government that you're having a meeting.
No, inform me that you are going to have such a function here.
It sounds like you're curtailing people's freedoms.
Actually, creating a
It's
dictatorship.
not a matter that you have to invite me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just
we are not
informing.
curtailing people's freedom. Anyway, Ndindi Nyoro also was wrong. You see, he has also been traversing in other people's constituencies, if you look at it from this perspective.
Okay.
Also, he should have also allowed this Maina Commanders group to traverse in his constituency if you are taking that angle.
Okay.
Because after all, he has also been traversing elsewhere in Kenya, spreading his message. So, if you view it from that side, of course, the burden now lies with Ndindi Nyoro.
Okay.
Yes, anyway, have a very good morning.
Thank you very much, Richard, for calling in. Our number is 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You're taking your views and comments on this particular issue of, carrying it from yesterday's event in a church in Kiharu, where the MP Ndindi Nyoro went into a church and found that the church had invited Maina Commander and a certain group of people to come and lead a funds drive. And Ndindi Nyoro said, one, I was not informed that these people were coming to my constituency, and number two, because I'm the area MP, I should have been the one who welcomes them into the area. So I stood at the podium and I took the microphone and I said, I'm the one who's going to recognize your presence, all of you. If you are here, write your name down. I'm going to read it and say, Siti Muga, karibu sana Kiharu constituency. Jerry Thorne, karibu sana Kiharu constituency. This is what we are discussing. Also, we are asking, is it right for the church to start mixing these issues as well? Having politicians in church, having politics discussed openly in church. Is it wrong? Is the church leadership losing what they're supposed to be doing?
I'm not saying they're losing it. I'm saying they lost it.
They lost it a while ago.
Lost it.
But
did the church lose it?
I just want to point out, Ndindi must have been super vexed, though.
Completely.
How dare they leave him? I mean,
I'm just imagining him. But having said that, I want to discuss our evolution as a society. We've had people call in and make certain statements, and we've got CT's position. The church used to be very conservative. But in order to serve an evolving society, it has to become a little bit more liberal. And in that, I think it has to embrace aspects of politics as well, because that is what people need leadership on. It is a serious pillar in their lives. Politics is important to them. So I see the importance maybe of allowing politicians. Maybe we need a framework through which we can bring politics into the church, perhaps. But most importantly, you can't have your cake and eat it. The church cannot get involved with drafting the constitution and cannot get involved with the state and then not allow for the remnants that come with that involvement, which is politics. So you can't have the church telling us you cannot abort because life begins at conception. And that comes into the constitution, which people vote for. So already they're getting involved in a political process. And then when it comes to leaders and politics, we say no, the church cannot bring that in. Do you see what I mean? It's a grey area, yes, but I think if you're going to get involved, if it's church and state, then you've got to allow, as I say, the remnants of being involved in the states, which is politics.
Fine, but you don't come to the pulpit and bring the politics in the pulpit.
You know, Jerry Anderson.
Can I take this view from Victor? Victor is calling from Nairobi. Good morning, Victor.
Morning, Eric.
Well, welcome to the Situation Room. C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, and Nduoko are here with me.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Victor.
Yeah, what I wanted to say about the Ndindi Nyoro and Kieleweke was this, to an extent, it's about the Jubilee supremacy war between number 1 and number 2, Uhuru and Ruto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the president sent in his $1 million shillings to be contributed, and Ndindi Nyoro here to represent his master as well had to come in and show that he's active on the ground. Remember 2 months ago, Gunjiri, the Nyeri town MP, Gunjiri did the same thing. But he didn't do it in the church premise. He did it somewhere in a market. He interrupted Kieleweke.
Where Kieleweke was.
Yes. But he didn't do it in church. The trap that Nyoro fell in was that it was in the church premise. Unfortunately for him, he tried to do the same what Gunjiri did. You know, these people hand out all of them. So I know if he didn't intervene yesterday, his master would have asked him, wewe ulifanya nini jana? You let those people tarnish my name in your home turf. So they have to appease their master.
But Victor,
and it's a Uhuru-Ruto supremacy thing.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it happened in church.
If we go beyond the Uhuru-Ruto supremacy battles, that you call it, the Kieleweke Tanga battles, let's go into the church leadership. The church invited politicians to church.
Generally, we have moral degradation in the country, so the church doesn't have its place. I can give you an example. Sometimes back as a youth, I used to help in my local church in the pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to carry the offering bag. After the funds had been collected, we, the youth, young people, used to take it back at the back room so that they can be counted and signed and all that. Before it was counted, these senior, 2 of them, members of the church, they come back there and pick the 1,000 notes in the offering. I didn't believe what I was seeing, but that's what the church is. No morality completely.
So they pick the notes and stuff in their pockets and move.
Yeah, as I watched.
And your records, therefore, do not include the 1,000 notes that have been picked.
You've not yet counted because you just take it back, come back, finish prayers is when you guys will go to count.
So the church lost its moral bearing a long time ago.
Yeah, they're not there.
All right.
They surrendered it to the politicians.
Thank you.
And that's why you see the passion Nyoro is putting Muranga. Muranga has a lot of problems, coffee, but you've never seen him come with that vegan passion. When it was a Kieleweke Tanga because of the handouts they get, he had all the passion and energy to intervene. Actually, he pulled a commando move. He was one man against all those people. Ready, raring to go.
Very good. Thank you very much, Victor, for your contribution this morning. And have a good day, Victor.
Thank you, sir.
The conversation continues. And, the issue here is, has the church lost it? Because I think that's where we are trying to focus that conversation on that point, right? Has the church lost it? 0719-012-600. Good morning. This is Spice FM.
Hi, morning. This is Timothy. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Timothy.
Hi to everyone else in the
morning.
studio.
Hello.
Hi. Now, this issue of churches and money. Early this year, unfortunately, we had a number of deaths in the extended and family and friends, and so we got intimately involved in some of the burial and whatever preparations. Central Kenya has an issue, and you're talking about major denominations of the churches, where within the burial preparations, you'd be told, okay, now we need to put an envelope for the pastor or for the bishop, and it's within the budget. It's not discussed. It's not an issue. That one of everybody knows this is what actually happens. I was going now with my parents, and they were telling me how every single month they have to give a tithe, which they send by M-Pesa to the pastor, the head of that particular denomination, to the church. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, we went for a funeral where a very close family friend had been involved in the building of the church and was not allowed to be buried there because she hadn't been tithing. How does this tie into everything? Politicians are paying for their right to speak. They're paying for the mic. So, you know, when you see them there, just know they have already paid.
So they feel entitled.
They are entitled, not they feel, they are entitled.
Okay.
You see, nowadays you see bishops driving bigger cars than, you know, it's a whole extortion scheme. Let's not lie. Let's not beat around the bush. You know, we can talk and talk and talk, but
let's not mask it.
The plot was lost a long time ago.
Okay.
There's a whole extortion scheme running, and
Timothy, can I ask
I
you a
was
question?
shocked. Yes.
Are you saying that all the churches, all the institutions in this country that refer to them as churches fall into that bandwagon of extortionists?
You can tell the tree by the fruit that it produces.
Thank
so
you.
When you see a lot of politicians flocking around a certain church, you need not be told anything. You know exactly. I'm telling you, I was actually shocked when I was told that my late grandmother, was the largest tither in that particular church. And that is because my father and his brothers used to tithe on her behalf. And so when we were having the funeral a few months ago, you know, you'd have the bishop there, you'd have the senior pastors, you'd have everyone, because they were saying this is a great person, great in quotes, and you know,
great contributor to the church.
Great contributor to the church, and yet this great contribution is sent by M-Pesa to people's phone numbers.
Thank you very much, Timothy. I also have Birungi on the line. Birungi, good morning. Birungi.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I love the situation room.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, very interesting topic today. In fact, Kenya is a pagan state as we are talking right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In fact, we have no Christians. The only practicing religion the only religion that we can say is a bit serious in matters religion is Islam and Hindu. Christians lost it. We are supposed to be dead and buried. In fact, we're supposed to go to hell. If the benchmark of going to heaven is what is happening, I'll explain. I like what the previous caller said. In fact, it just echoed what I really wanted to say. It does not matter. Am I speaking to Latif?
Yes, you're speaking to all of us.
Oh, yeah, sure. It does not matter how good a Christian you are right now, as long as there is a politician in play. In short, the whole church system is taken up by the politicians, and for sure, we are not remaining anywhere near. In fact, I'm a congregant of one of the churches in town. And I never even struggle to be noticed. In fact, I just go sit at the back bench, finish off what I'm doing, and I go there because I want my kids to grow up in a Christian manner. But if possible, I wouldn't want them to know what's happening. The other point I would want to put out is this. Politically, we'll have a loss for the next 10 years if these things go on the way they are going. We'll lose out on legislation. For sure, I was talking to a friend of mine in the Treasury. If things are to be placed in black and white on how things are in terms of legislation, in terms of finance, in terms of economy, we would just be another Libya. True. And it's all because of the leaders we chose. Partly I blame ourselves because we are not rational when it comes to choosing some of these people. Someone like Dindi Nyoro, anytime I see him on TV, I switch off because I know there is nothing of importance he's going to say. Nothing personal, but that's basically what it is. Any people within the Kieleweke or the Tanga place, it is just hogwash. In fact, I even don't know why you guys, bring them on air. Because for sure there is nothing of value they always put across. They just put other day.
And yet they were elected.
That is the point. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm partly blaming myself for voting in some of these people. I voted the Nairobi governor. And you can see. And for sure, I'll go down in history as having contributed to the mess that we have in this country right now. I can barely afford whatever I used to 5 years ago. Right now, I have to plan.
And you believe it's because of the choices that you made?
Oh, no, he believes it's
That
the
is the
Nairobi
point.
governor.
No. No, it's a whole cocktail. It's a cocktail of everything. Because you see, back in the 90s, back in the 90s, the church would be there to rescue us from such a government. Right now,
the church is nowhere.
we don't. It is nowhere. In fact, I miss Akina Muge. You remember the likes of Akina Muge and et al.
Yeah.
Those guys actually put Moi on toes. Were it not for them, I believe we wouldn't be having a country right now. Okay. Right now, if things go on like this, you'll have that situation room discussing issues, not development, but how the country has been subdued by cartels that involve the politicians and the churches. Because yesterday's situation shouldn't have even been imagined that it can happen. In front of a priest at the altar, people tying each other down. In fact, it's not even imaginable. It's unfathomable.
Thank you very much, Birunji. Thank you for calling into the Situation Room this morning. We wish you a great day ahead. So we're discussing the issue that happened yesterday and also asking ourselves, where is it? Has the church derailed somewhat? And Jerry is actually arguing and saying, no. The church needs to adapt to the times. This is what we are living. These are the times that we are living in. This is where we should be focusing on. Look, we should also be seeing that church has entered politics. So the church should also allow politics to enter church.
Is there any caller who has supported her views?
Well, we're going to get some more callers after this break. 0719-012-600. If you support Jerry's views, CT seems to believe that because there's no caller who has supported Jerry's views, but then maybe nobody's actually
all
supporting
these are church-going
No, the
people.
tacit silence is the silence is support.
The silence is support.
Absolutely.
0719-012-600. We are streaming live on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on Facebook, Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. It's 25 minutes to 8 o'clock.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
All right. Mombasa Road from Simba Cement Grinding Plant all towards Athi River apparently is moving very quickly, but that's in the opposite direction of where everybody else is going. So just a tad of good news for you. Gong Road outbound is bumper to bumper at St. Hannah's School towards Adams Arcade. So like we said, things will definitely change as the hours creep by. So we've got a problem on Gong Road as well. Thika Road is still the same situation where cars are bumper to bumper. It's been a while since the superhighway looked this busy, apparently. On your way from Githurai, jam imeshika hapo karibu na Roysambo. It's moving slowly, so be careful as you approach that area. All right, because of some of the road construction that we have happening within the CBD, we have some traffic coming into the city center as well as going out. So that is what it's looking like when you're arriving into Nairobi City. All right, Thika Road, like we said, still has an issue. Ngong Road, as we told you, still has an issue, as does Wayaki Way. Other than that, if you have any situations that we should know about, do give us a call on 0719-012-600 and we'll keep you moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
22 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Eric Latif, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. We are here discussing issues that have happened in the country, and we're reminiscing the good old days of the Archbishop of the Anglican Church. What was his name again?
Ndingi Mwananzeki.
No, that was a Catholic church.
No, sorry. I was actually going to say Benjamin Zimbi. Benjamin Zimbi actually was one of the individuals who actually...
Yes, we had Benjamin
Zimbi in the AC of the Anglican Church, who actually pushed, not just did not allow, but he actually was quite vocal in his time about how the church should be a moral compass for the rest of society, looking at situations whereby he insisted that, we should be the ones to show how people should operate. And this umbrella was put over everybody, regardless of the profession that you were in, whether you were a doctor, lawyer, as well as politician, and saying that, this is not where people come to play. This is where now we're actually forming how people should live,
right?
How people should speak, how people should operate, and didn't want to bring in what we would now look at as the ugly side of politics. That was not welcome in any way, shape, or form at that church at that point.
And in your opinion, what is the ugly? What exemplifies the ugly side of politics?
I mean, look at what we saw yesterday. It was not palatable in any way whatsoever.
Yes.
And these are kind of the things that
is it because it was in the church, or if it had happened outside church, it would be fine?
Because of the fact that we don't expect such a thing to happen within the church, then gives it kind of an ugly face. You don't expect that to happen because, again, we're looking at the sacred. We're looking at the holy, the non-shameful.
It's a two-sided bad coin. Well, the head of this bad coin is that it happened in the church. And the tail of the bad coin is that it happens anywhere.
That's the evolutionary process.
Oh, that Jerry is talking about.
Yep, this is where we are.
What I'm suggesting is church is there for spiritual leadership, guidance, and also as a moral compass. But given that it's guiding us, it should guide us on all aspects of our lives, including the choices we make in our leadership, political leadership.
Yep.
And it's chosen to do so in a very strong manner in terms of being involved in the Constitution. I mentioned its involvement in terms of abortion. The church was very strong, and this was put in the Constitution as to when life begins, and this has banned abortion. So if the church is going to get involved in governance issues from that perspective, the Constitution involvement, and it's going to lead us and direct us and guide us, then it should guide us on all aspects of our lives, including how we exercise our right to vote. So this is just the way it's played out because we're not allowing it, or we're not creating a proper framework or a structure for the church to do this. What we're doing is letting politicians come and make noise, and the church takes some money off them. Yes. So maybe we need to structure this properly and say we will actually have a segment where we talk about governance, and we will actually give our leaders a platform and the podium to talk to us about their governance. And then the church leader can actually stand up and give his opinion thereafter. But of course, his opinion would then be bought. But I'm just beginning to... the idea of creating a framework through which to work with this. Do you see what I mean? I think it's important. If the church is guiding us on all other aspects of our lives, the church is involved in lawmaking, the church is involved in governance matters, our national anthem is a prayer, why shouldn't the church then be involved in politics?
It is.
But they are involved in
and the reason
No,
why
you're arguing it shouldn't.
No, no,
Now,
no.
I'm saying if it was and it was involved in the right manner, then we wouldn't see certain fallout such as this, because you can also get banned. For instance, imagine a club where there's rules and protocol.
Club.
So if you do, like, Mathaiga Club or Karen, a
But
club.
they all have rules.
Not a nightclub. Absolutely. So imagine
Even
if
nightclubs
we
have
allowed
rules.
if we allowed for the politicians, because we do need guidance and it can come from the church, that's not a problem. So imagine the church allowing for the politicians, but with rules. When you say no, we don't need politics in church, then you're going to have it in a rogue manner. But if we accept it and we say these are the rules and these are the penalties to the politicians if they break the rules, then I think it's a win-win situation.
Agreed.
The problem
the thing
is
is then let's condemn first what is currently happening, which is politicians in church without rules.
If it didn't happen,
and
we
not
wouldn't be talking
following
about
rules,
it.
Right?
The problem.
And
what
it's not a
are
new
the
thing.
rules?
It's
There's
not
no
a
rules
new
at the moment. There's no rules.
Eric, I have to come in on that, because if we say that politicians are not obeying the rules, somebody let them in. And this is what we are saying. At the point where the church has, somebody let them in. They didn't just rock up to church
And
and
like
say,
Timothy and
"This is
Solomon
my-"
have told us,
money, as they
it's
say,
money.
has been poured. Somebody accepted money to allow them to do these things. You can look at something as simple as a fundraiser, which churches do Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. It's something kind of like a rolling agenda.
And this,
But now you're saying the only way for us to succeed is if we invite this politician to then come in and help us push this particular
we
fund
change
drive.
the foundation. I think the foundation is what is wrong,
We
Jerry.
let
You see-
everything in the door once we opened it. You can't say we're just going to open this door so they can allow us with this. You're going to let the cat in the door. Well, guess what? You let in all the bugs, all the mosquitoes,
And the
everything
fleas.
else, and the fleas come in at the same time.
How
You must.
exactly?
If you're going to open this door, then you must be willing to accept everything else. You cannot we cannot then turn
no,
around and say that there's
the
a problem
same people
when we're the ones who
vote for
open the
these
door.
politicians are the same people who attend these churches. And the church itself has its own politics. And that politics is often very vicious. My contention was, and from the beginning, that we're looking at this thing wrongly. See, we are assuming that there is this really secular entity called politics that is now interfering with the church. And I'm saying no. If you look at the following the politicians have, that thing is a religion. People subscribe to it. And the tenets of politics are the things we seem to be condemning here. The corruption, the buying of this, those are the tenets. People seem to like these tenets. If they didn't like these tenets, then they wouldn't support these politicians. So what we're seeing is a competition of two religions. And it looks like the political religion seems
Is
to
winning.
It appears to be winning clearly, meaning the traditional church as we know it, as I said, lost it.
I don't think they're necessarily two different religions. I think maybe the church has remained rather conservative, whereas the people have moved on with the times and become a lot more liberal. With regards to taking funds...
Corruption forms part of that being liberal?
It's liberalism.
Yes, allowing people...
Actually,
to
it's less, the church is less corrupt than it was previously. You used to have to... You could pay your way out of purgatory before. Do you remember that? Where you could actually give donations to the church so you spend less time in purgatory.
Yeah, but
how corrupt is
how
that?
many people went to purgatory to tell us what was
To tell us what actually happened when they were
So
there.
you believe maybe there is purgatory?
I
You could pay
believe
your
there
way
isn't
out of it?
purgatory.
Okay, well, the church was actually misleading people then for the sake of funds.
Now-
So now what it's doing, it's allowing politicians to mislead people.
No.
And they take the
It's
funds.
them allowing. It's not the same thing. The evolutionary process you speak of has taken place. It's not as easy.
It's not a
about
new
to
thing.
take
It's done,
place.
dusted. It was done a long time
It's
ago.
taken place.
Yeah.
And usually, it's the congregants, the very people who subscribe to that church who actually change it. Now, even as we say this, we must be reasonable. There are exceptions to the rule.
And you know, interestingly enough, when we talk about church, we seem to assume that it's just the church leadership who is at fault, and the church actually encompasses it's a church.
Church is people.
Well, exactly. The church is the
Church
people.
is
We're not
people.
talking
Just like
about a
government is
building.
people,
Yeah.
church
We're
is
not talking
people.
about a
It's the
building.
virtues.
It's the people who still make up part of society, make part of communities,
virtues
make part
and
of
the politicians.
families. These are the it's individuals that make up a group of people. So then again, the thing, it comes back to us. The question comes back to us as the people. What it is that we are entrenching that now allows things like this to happen? And this spiritual nourishment that we keep talking about, we have, stunted individuals morally.
0719-012-600. We are taking your views this morning. Good morning. This is Spice FM. Balozi wa Kitengela.
Yes, sir. Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm pissed off.
All right, and that's a good thing. That's a
I'm
good place to
totally
start.
pissed off by what happened yesterday. First of all, good morning, all protocol observed.
Good morning, Balozi.
Yeah, I'm pissed off because what happened yesterday was a very, let me not put other words, but say a very bad scene.
Right.
Not to the church in particular, not to that church particularly, but all churches. Because this thing, yes, yesterday it came out, such that happened in Moranga, but it happens in other churches. Only that the media was not there to take the views, or rather to record the scene. First of all, yes, you're right. The church particular belongs to it is held by people. Money is poured to have the politicians go there. Money is poured to allow such things to happen. Why didn't they take whatever they were doing to another area apart from the church? Kwani Nyoro and Kamanda was one of them anapeana noti mzee na mwingine noti mpya ndio waanze kuvurugana kanisani. Kusema kweli, that's a very bad thing, Jerry. Hizi pesa zinafanya na ndio zilifanya hata Yesu afukuze watu kanisani. Wangepeleka waeke tent nje ya kanisa huko wakipigania it's okay. They fight even with the seat. Okay?
So you don't think politicians should have a podium in a church?
No, I really don't think.
Why?
Let them come, stay, sit down, listen to the word, walk away. If they want to talk, let them talk outside the church, outside, hapo nje ya mlango.
Okay, so it's the fact that the church is sacred. You're coming from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, sincerely.
Okay, from a pragmatic perspective. From a pragmatic perspective, if people are under one roof, church or not, and you have an opportunity to speak to them, you think because it's a church they shouldn't?
It's speaking, they speak what entirely relating to church things. If it's fundraising, walk there, give your money, sit down.
Is leadership not church things? Governance issues, they're not church things? The Bible talks about governance and leadership.
It's a church thing, yes, to some extent.
And politics comes with leadership and governance. No?
If politics were in church, if it will be allowed to be in church, that's another thing. But political issues and views should not be allowed to church, because one or 2 seconds people will they won't hawatasikizana.
Kwa hivyo unasema the church goers are naive in terms of watakosana because of what the politicians are saying. Are you saying they're not mature enough to listen to two opposing views and actually listen to them and enjoy the church service and leave? It's the congregation that has the problem.
Not really.
You didn't fall for that one,
Almost.
Oh, you almost got it. No.
Well done, Balozi.
Well done.
No, you said they'll be divided.
We've lost Balozi. We've lost. He's gone. But yes, you see, the thing is, let's not mix those two issues. People have woken up and gone to church for a specific reason and purpose, seeking spiritual nourishment. Let that be the reason. Do not bring in fact, don't be as the leadership of the church. Don't connive and pick some money and bring in somebody because you have an audience here that is ready to listen, to come and start giving them your politics. That is where the issue is.
Why not? That's where my issue is. Why not?
Allow me to
because
explain, allow me to explain this to Njeri. If you look at the ethos around the Christian faith, there are no senior brothers, there are no cousins, there are no uncles. People are brothers and sisters and children of God, full stop. So when you go to church, you are all equal.
Level playing field.
Yes. Now, where the leaders started muddying these waters is by acknowledging certain members as being more senior, saying, so-and-so is with us, can you come and say hello? You've already acknowledged that person as being more senior than everybody else. And then we got into a tradition where people who seemed to, as there's a gentleman caller who came, not a gentleman caller, a caller who was a gentleman who actually stated very clearly that with his grandmother, because his uncles and relatives paid a lot of tithe through M-Pesa to that particular church, the grandmother had a massive funeral. people were acknowledged and given positions within our churches because of what they thought they could bring monetarily. That has happened in our churches. Now, there are those who argue that is the evolutionary process. There are people like me who argue that it was now the corruption of the very ethos of our churches. In 1970, a certain commission was set up in this country. It was called the Ndegwa Commission. There are people who blame every ill that we have in this country currently on that
commission.
Yes.
Tell us about
what happened.
In summary, it allowed civil servants to engage in business. That's it. That's all it did.
Right.
Nothing more complicated. Now, in this day and age, that's what we call conflict of interest. Yes.
So you think there's a conflict of interest between politicians and church, given the ethos and the philosophies? They're contradicting.
I'm saying it is because if you align yourself to a politician, then you cannot be the bulwark. You cannot be the yes.
Providing a platform isn't aligning yourself. Remember, if church is going to give us guidance, it must do so on all aspects of our lives.
It is.
Who you choose as a voter needs guidance if you're going to church and you feel you rely on the church.
How are you connecting the two?
Because church is giving you guidance on your marriage,
no.
on your work,
Yes.
on your relationships. Why not on the most important thing, which is how you vote?
No, but
because leadership and governance
discussion.
is what is actually going to even
Jerry, you brought in a new
oversee all those things.
It's a different discussion.
Yes, I'm simply. I was giving the example of a platform being provided for politicians, therefore elevating them and telling the rest of the congregation that they acknowledge this senior person. Yes.
Because that's what happens.
You're abrogating the ethos of the faith.
And to be fair to churches as well, there are churches that organize this kind of talks and such. You know, they say on certain day we're going to have this kind of conversation. We're going to have a leadership forum. We're going to have wait, it's specific. This is the agenda of this meeting. We are bringing in leaders to come and talk to us about ABCD. What do you think about this and that? And we come and discuss that. And
then you bring that leader.
And the leader comes and responds and gives their views. And they also pick questions from the people who've come for that sitting. If I've come to church, the service is between 9:30 and 11:30, 12:30, whatever. I've come to church. And the politician who's coming has also come to church. Now you standing there on the pulpit as the preacher, you start acknowledging, Mheshimiwa Njeri is here, and Mheshimiwa you'll kuja usalimia watu wako kidogo. Mheshimiwa Njeri, and then Mheshimiwa Njeri stands up, and because the opponent C.T. Muga, who was opposing her in the last election, is also there. Now, mnajua kuna watu wengine hapa ambao
you have a moment to now push your own political agenda.
That is wrong. And because we have seen that is what Njeri is likely to do, then we should not allow Njeri to actually do that. That's where leadership of the church comes in, and that's where the leadership of the church fails.
And this is why I was talking about the church not being a building, but actually being a community, because we see the same thing replicated, even in instances where we have funerals, where the church as a body is conducting a funeral, for example, of someone who has departed. And then we still have the same situations where now that is now being used as a platform to push or propagate a particular political agenda. So that's what I'm saying, in the sense that we've lost it, where we've opened the door and allowed all of this in as a church. At the same time, politicians who are coming in, if we had a situation whereby the platform was being used to teach and lead and guide from a political leadership point of view, that would be a totally different thing. But we have politicians using these platforms purely to feed their agenda, and it is wrong, at the behest of nourishment, at the behest of people who are mourning in a funeral, for example. Those are the kind of things that we're saying should not be the case.
You know what is the worst part of it is that people actually like it.
I was going to say, they want to be addressed, believe it or not.
Let me tell you, everybody...
Even at funerals, they want to be addressed.
They enjoy this.
If you actually hear very many cases where the family itself is opposed to a politician coming to speak.
Yes.
Everybody else, because, they're secondary, they're like, wacha mheshimiwa tuongeleshe. Why? Because we want to hear the mheshimiwa talking to us, because we know at some point after this service, we're going to corner this mheshimiwa. This is it. But the family that's mourning actually at that point is saying, please, just let us mourn our dearly departed. We'd love to have this conversation, we amongst ourselves as a people. Let's talk about so-and-so who's gone, not the mheshimiwa who's coming in.
And this talked to that we're saying they like being talked to, the talked to is the one that CT has often talked about before. It's not talked to, tell us your political ambitions for 2022. It's talked to so that afterwards we can see what it is that's going to come out of your pocket. And let's be honest, that's what it is.
Wachani niwaambie hii BBI ni bure kabisa. Wachani niwaambie punguza mzigo tutaiangusha. Waambieni ule jamaa. This is the kind of conversations we're having. And it's wrong.
Politicians provide enormous entertainment at such functions.
Well,
church services are not known to be entertaining.
Don't hire a band.
Yes.
Invite a politician. Spice FM KE is where we are broadcasting live. We are streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. That's Spice FM KE. You can log in there and watch us. Spice FM KE on Twitter. The conversation is happening and actually it's getting heated. Also, our telephone number 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. I'd like to read you our frequencies across the country. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. Well, worldwide, www.spicefm.co.ke. Let me just pick this final caller for this morning. Good morning, this is Spice FM.
Good morning, Spice. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And you well?
Good morning.
My name is Nathaniel.
Yes, Nathaniel.
The discussion this morning is interesting. One, unfortunately, we seem to have concentrated on one event in one church. We are forgetting there was another event in a different church as well. But I like how Njeri is bringing it out. One is we should not give platform to some people to show that they are better than others when you're in the church. That's number one. Number two, even when you've been given that platform.
Jerry
didn't say that.
She's actually saying the complete opposite.
Yeah, the opposite.
It is I who has that view, but nonetheless, let's give Jerry credit for what I've said.
Good.
Maybe that was Ndu. Maybe that was Ndu you were asking.
Yes, I continue.
I take it back.
No, don't take it back.
We are happy with what you're saying.
Let's give it to Njeri.
Yes, we've given it to Njeri, so carry on.
We're happy that Njeri goes with that.
Okay, fine. The mistake we are doing in this country is one, there's nothing that these politicians are telling us come every weekend, apart from either BBI, handshake, and every other thing that is not adding any food on our table. Now, what they're doing is they are continuing to fuel a certain agenda that ensures we don't have anything, so we look forward to them visiting every weekend. And no wonder we are looking for their pockets after every event.
It's the only thing we can actually, only thing of value we can get.
Yeah, there's someone once said that what they've done is you take a chicken and remove all the feathers, then throw it in the sun or in the cold. Any other time, it will come to look for you because you have its feathers. So they've taken away all our feathers. So whether it is hot or cold, we have to go back to them for our feathers.
Could you repeat that feathers thing again, please?
Now, it is. I don't know whether it's more Chinese or something. Okay. Politicians in Kenya have made us chicken.
Yes.
And removed all our feathers.
All right.
Without killing us. So we are alive, but we don't have feathers, which would protect us from heat or from cold.
So we keep running back to them to seek feathers.
Yes. At any given time, whether it is hot, cold, you have to go back for your feathers.
Okay. We didn't get your name, sir. What was your name again?
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel, asante sana for calling this morning and have a good day.
You too.
Asante sana. Well, the conversation continues also on our social media handles. Spice FM KE on Twitter, Spice FM KE on Facebook. We're streaming live Spice FM KE on YouTube and Facebook and www.spicefm.co.ke. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
All right, it seems that people off on Ngong Road, around Naivasha Road, are complaining that they might spend the whole day in traffic. If you can avoid Naivasha Road getting to Ngong Road, please do it. Thika Road, we still have traffic as far as Safari Park coming down to towards town. So people are saying if you can use the Mao Summit route, please go ahead and do that. Now, apart from that, we still have issues on Mombasa Road, Wayaki Way, Langata Road, Ngong Road. It seems everywhere is traffic this Monday morning. Around about 8 o'clock, let's see if at least over the next hour it does dissipate and you can get where you're going. Any alternate routes that you see that we know about, please do give us a call on 0719-012-600 and let's at least make the morning a little bit more flowery for everybody else.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. Welcome to The Situation Room. Now, on Friday, we had some breaking news that the former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, passed away at the age of 95. He was undergoing treatment in Singapore. And it had an outpouring of emotion from across the country, across the globe. We had very many conflicting stories and views and opinions on the legacy, the life of Robert Mugabe. We also saw many of our leaders send their condolence messages. The president declared 3 days of mourning. The flag was to fly at half-mast. And a lot of Kenyans were also contributing to this and saying this on Twitter, that, Robert Mugabe has left a strong and powerful legacy. However, Ndu, not everybody is happy about that.
Not everybody's happy about this. And I mean, as events unfolded over the next few days, it seemed that Zimbabweans, on a rather large note, those who are resident in Zimbabwe and those who are resident in other countries around the world, felt that, okay, yes, to you, Robert Mugabe was a hero, an icon, a leader that, other leaders should aspire to be in terms of, what he held dear and the agendas that he pushed for the people of the country and also for the country as a whole. But this is not what a lot of Zimbabweans remember. He was lauded as the most educated African politician. He was an African icon. And really, there is no denying that. For the continent's psyche, he represented the kind of powerful, intelligent leader that many of us crave. But this shining ideal is simply not true, according to many Zimbabweans. A lot of Zimbabweans feel that he was responsible for unspeakable horrors. His legacy is a broken, traumatized country that's struggling to create an identity separate from him. And we do have quite a number of Zimbabweans who felt that, or actually who feel right now that the rest of Africa is doing them a disservice by romanticizing this man, Mugabe. And the only Mugabe they knew is the one that did not do the spectacular in their lives. And so here we are having a very deep conversation about the fact that they are bruised, they are hurt, they're going into a future that is unknown because of the past injustices that they felt actually were done. We talk about land reform, or rather land redistribution in Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans talk about the fact that the land was distributed to friends of Mugabe, and they didn't actually feel the benefits of this of this distribution. They talked about the murders that happened. They talked about a country they grew up, or rather they existed in, where things just did not work, where the value of their money depreciated to levels that it's actually a joke around the rest of the world. A country whereby they saw a man who was a good orator, and that is what other countries in Africa know this man to be, a fantastic orator, but for them, they were plunged into an existence which they wouldn't wish on their worst enemy. These are things that we see all over social media over the last couple of days, and they say, it's great when you want to, laud somebody after his death, but the world that we have been left to exist in is very different from what it is that you speak of now. And I feel that that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. We laud him, we applaud him, but the people who have to exist in the country that he left behind after so many years of this kind of rule are seeing a totally different picture. They feel that we're romanticizing something that for them is a horror that they have to live in for a very long time to come.
But it's not all of them do. I mean, I'm sure there are people who also in Zimbabwe would feel the same way that the people in Kenya are feeling. There are people who mourn him. Are there not?
Well, I'm sure the people who
Is it an
mourn him.
overwhelming majority of people in Zimbabwe who feel, you guys, we don't need to speak so highly of this man?
The voices that come out are representative of a large number of people who feel that, okay, you laud him, but here we are having to live in the aftermath of a situation that he created, whereby really we are not enjoying the life that many people would hope that would have been the case. But it's not the case. It's not the case. This is not the case. And those have to be taken into consideration.
You know, it's a difficult legacy in this sense. If you look at Mugabe's history, you know, we talk of Mugabe at the time he became a politician. You forget that in the 1930s, Mugabe was not just expelled from a school. This was a Jesuit school in the area that he lived in. His parents had to move as a result of this. This is a man who had a very independent way of looking at things. He was, one could argue, he was way ahead of his time. A lot of the problems that we talk about around the time when he had started having issues with the British government, every time I listen to the radio and I hear people saying how he fought against the British. I'm saying he did, but the problem was with Ian Smith. Ian Smith was the fellow who was now the leader of Zimbabwe, whom he took over from.
Yep.
The white minority had taken over. Remember, Mugabe's first wife died, and the circumstances around her death and his inability to help because he was not enabled to, or because he was prevented to, that created the first point of conflict that some could argue. So Mugabe, one could argue, was a wartime leader. He was at war. He was fighting for liberation. Now, the atrocities that go with that particular situation are often profound. Think of any country, whether you want to talk about South Africa, whether you want to talk about the Mau Mau in Kenya, it doesn't matter where you want to talk about it. It is never anything pleasant. If you want to talk about, people talk about Che Guevara, or you want to talk about Castro, the point I'm trying to make is a simple one. It is not easy to simply lump someone like Mugabe with one definition and say he was this, because he was a composite creature. He wasn't
many
one.
things.
He was many things at different times to many people.
But the sum of them all, would you say is positive or negative? Because I think that's what the people who are complaining
I'd
against.
say positive.
I think Mugabe morphed over the years. I think he started off as the liberator and fighting for Zimbabwe. And then as opposition against him increased internally, you saw the tyrant come out. And of course, absolute power. Well, he was in power for way too long. That's where the mistake came in. But I have a lot of respect for the man. He stood up to the West. And what we saw with the economy in Zimbabwe, those were consequences of sanctions from the West. So the blame as to who to put it on, I don't think I would put it on Mugabe. I think he did well for his country. What I'd be very interested in is the demographic of the people who are complaining in Zimbabwe. Are these young people who don't know what he did for the country, who have grown up more liberal and are looking, would have been in opposition? There would be a lot of dissent coming from them even while he was alive. Or are these older people who know the history very well and understand what Mugabe did for Zimbabwe in standing up to the British?
Even the older people who maybe know exactly what they have their history very well. Maybe the people from Matabele land would have a different view completely different view, because he launched a serious attack on Matabele land.
10,000?
Right? Very many people were
Reported.
killed. Reportedly killed. But what was the cause of that? So the issue of down south, apartheid coming in and trying to push into areas and Mugabe and his people thinking that the Matabeleland people were supporting what was being brought in by the apartheid regime in South Africa. All these issues were in play.
People died. Suffered.
People were crushed.
Yes, it was an unpleasantly painful period for one particular community.
And one leader actually emerged with the name the Crocodile.
The guy who's now currently the president.
And these were the people that were, yes, it is interesting because essentially these are the people that now, people like him, also the crocodile, as we say, these are the people that were surrounded themselves around Mugabe. These were his cronies. These were his advisors. These were the people that, they made decisions with. And these things that we're talking about that were terrible experiences are what people remember. And they attribute these terrible experiences to the man, Mugabe.
Mugabe himself.
Whether we want, yes. And it could be as a result of the fact that they do not know really what were
they do know
or the intricacies of this history.
For most people, perception is their reality.
Yep.
Yes.
So for them, their truth, their fact
Yes,
is that everything that went along with their pain and suffering would be attributed directly to Mugabe. And so this is what they remember. And what I'm saying is that must be taken into consideration, even as the accolades come in, even as the lauding and the applauding does come in. There are people who, for them, the narrative is totally, totally different.
You see,
do we have an answer to Jerry's question? Because she asked actually a very strong question here. Do we know the kind of demographic that's actually complaining, that's feeling that Mugabe did them wrong?
In terms of actual numbers?
No. In terms of like age, the age bracket.
No. Specifically, it is across board. There are people who are detained who will talk about it, which means they were actually there. There were people who are born, who are young, when these atrocities were taking place in their homeland. They were young. They've grown up, and that's all they know.
There are people who exiled.
What opinion is dominating? The negative one? This is internally. What opinion is dominating?
Well, I don't know if we're looking at an opinion that's dominating, but what we're saying is that yes, there are
many voices.
There are many voices that are speaking up, but then the thing that comes out clearly is that at his death, or the announcement of his death, several accolades about this man came forth.
Internationally?
Yes, internationally, all over the world. And African countries, everybody spoke about the fact that he was an icon, a ruler, a leader that, other leaders should aspire to. And then later on, interestingly enough, the sentiment came out and it said, it's really great that the rest of the world is lauding this man now that he's dead. But this is what we remember. Those who were exiled, those who had to go to other countries in order to survive, those who were detained, as CT said, those who grew up not knowing a Zimbabwe that
had this thing that we're talking
about. They never knew this Zimbabwe that we're talking about.
Yes.
They never knew it. And so for them, the narrative is completely different from what we would say. A statesman who started out with this icon strategy, fantastic. That's how he started out. But we lived the reality of a tyrant.
There are those who benefited from his rule. They will say wonderful, positive things
about him. Yeah.
The thing is, we discussed the issue of legacies, or we touched on it the other day. And right now, it takes center stage in the Kenyan political realm every once in a while, and then it goes away. This isn't something you can describe in a sentence, because by the time someone becomes a leader, they are not one simple thing. There are many things to many people. And that is the reality of any leader. And if a leader is considered great, why don't we jump across and go to our neighboring country and look at, say, Uganda? They have their issues, but the country is stable. Would you not say so?
It is stable.
Yeah, more or less.
Yes. So Jerry's view that a benevolent dictatorship is sometimes useful. You would find credence there, because there are political parties.
It has worked for some people.
It has worked for some people. But there's relative peace. You can join the opposition. You can get jailed for your efforts. But there is peace. Yes. So how would you judge, for instance, someone like President Museveni? To judge him, you would need to understand where they came from.
Context.
What he brought the country from and where they are. In the absence of what he did, this freedom where people now come up to criticize him, allowed to say things, would not exist. So, how do you judge such a person?
There's a lot of hue and cry on this, of course, over Twitter, and that's why we're discussing it. Because over the weekend, there were very many people, especially across the world, in Kenya, Africa, around the world, who went to mourn the late Robert Mugabe. They say Robert Mugabe was a good leader. Africa has lost a statesman. Zimbabwe has lost a man who really stood up for his people, a man who championed the rights of his people. And then the people from Zimbabwe, people who lived through the regime of Robert Mugabe, who were coming out to say, no.
What are you people
talking about? We do not agree with everything that you're saying. And we're asking, so now surely, as guys are talking from what we've seen.
But you see, this is trying to define this person by the experiences of one group of people. You cannot. To define him, you have to state everything that he was. He began as this wonderful liberator. He had these issues. During this period, this is what happened. This is what happened. Then you can sum it up later if you wish. But everything that he represented must be mentioned, because that was the man.
It's interesting to know, looking at it as a collective legacy. In this case, the legacy was not one thing.
It can't
and
be
for
one
some
thing.
people positive, and for some other people negative. There's some people who attribute the failures. There are some people who attribute the negative situation that there's currently existing in this country 100% to Mugabe. There's some people who say the potential that the country has, they're only able to have realized this potential because of the sacrifices that the same Mugabe made earlier on when he was, rising up to the position in which he finally held for so long. Now, what we are saying is that for them to move forward, for them to be able to now grab onto this, the positive, and move on with it, their considerations or their narrative must be held up with importance.
This is a dog and a tick situation. You cannot be a leader, especially if you're a strong leader. Those who praise you and those who criticize you will criticize you with the same sort of force.
Equal measure.
But without contextualizing it. Let me go back, jump across, and go to even Rwanda. President
Paul Kagame.
Yes. I would argue a visionary leader. A man who has done something that was unthinkable, bringing the country to where it is now, where people enjoy the sort of peace they do. But the people who disagree with me and say, no, that's not it. And I would ask, so your platform from which you take this view, what is it? Leaders are composite creatures. They are not something simple. You must look at the genesis of whatever leadership they have, and you must look at the achievements and balance it against what you think is wrong. The criticism becomes necessary because these are human beings, and human beings tend to make mistakes just by their very nature. But you cannot just say or determine that this man was this in a sentence. No, you cannot.
You can't box him.
No, you cannot.
In fact, Jerry gave us a very good perspective of what, the views that you had of Robert Mugabe earlier and the views that you got of Robert Mugabe later, from what you had consumed.
Absolutely.
Just from what you had
consumed. The
consumed.
West was very deliberate in their ridiculing of Mugabe in terms of any fumble he did was amplified and so on. Of course, they wanted to hide the fact that they hadn't followed some of the charters they had agreed on in the run-up to independence and so on. So yes, I was initially of the view that he was a buffoon, so to speak. I mean, that's what was peddled in the West. He was completely ridiculed, and that he was a tyrant, a dictator. But as probably I grew a little older, a little more mature, and a bit more discerning, and realized the West does orchestrate scenarios, as we saw with Gaddafi and Libya, I started to see the hero in the man and the fight for liberation. Of course, I also understand that he was a very strong leader, a dictator, so to speak. So I understand those opposition and dissent was quashed very strongly. But I think what stands out for me and what dominates my opinion is the fact that he stood up to the West. He felt the wrath of the West thereafter through sanctions, and of course that's why we saw Zimbabwe suffer the way it did economically.
Let me ask you, Fidel Castro was made of similar fiber. The West did something almost similar, okay? But would you say that because of the economic sanctions and the position that he took, that Cuba ended up worse for wear as a result of his position?
Just because of what it is that he then,
what Cuba eventually became and what Cuba is. Yes.
Solely because of him?
He was a strong
Cuba
leader.
probably was not as reliant on Western aid and Western trade as Zimbabwe would have been. Remember also with him asking the black people to kick out the white farmers violently, there was food shortage because they weren't now being managed well. So there was a number of issues. It's dynamic, a little bit more dynamic than just saying it was the West. But I don't think Cuba was as reliant. Cuba focused on their social pillar and social services, so doctors and so on, the communist, whereas Zimbabwe was still on the capitalist trajectory. And if you don't have the trade agreements that you would with international companies, how are you growing as an economy?
Actually, Cuba did have what you're saying. What you're saying they didn't have is just that they weren't reliant on the West. That was the point.
That was the issue.
They were looking east.
Yes, they were not reliant on the West. But yes,
they were still trading with the
They had a
East.
fallback plan.
I've got a clip here of how Zimbabweans reacted to the news of the passing on of their former president, Robert Mugabe. And this is what they were saying.
I think President Mugabe was a leader. Yeah, since he was voted to be the president of Zimbabwe, he led Zimbabwe in a right way. We will say, may his soul rest in peace. He was someone who was a man of his words. he could do the right thing.
It's sad news. We lost a good father. Mugabe was all right. But this Mnangagwa is not all right. It's not all right. I tell you the truth. Mnangagwa is not all right. But Mugabe was a good father to us.
I'm shocked, my man. Like, I honestly cannot believe it. Truth be told, Robert Mugabe is one of my idols. You know, Robert Mugabe, Hitler, and Napoleon. For my reasons, you know. But I'm actually surprised. I'm taken by, like, I'm shocked.
He was just a bad leader. He was an all-around just bad leader. So I don't know how to feel about his passing. I mean, at the end of the day, he was still human. You have to respect that fact. But yeah, I don't know how to feel about his passing.
He didn't want to give other people a chance. That's my biggest thing. Now we have a huge problem just because he couldn't control his people. Okay, so yeah, it was time. It was time.
Politically, yes, he had his views, and unfortunately, not most of us agreed with it. He was not so good to his people. I hope that now that he's passed on, Zimbabwe will now be able to be a country that it was supposed to be and participate in the economy.
It's very sad for such a person like Mugabe to pass on. He was an African icon, in terms of the things that he has done in Zim, and then what he really achieved and stuff, right? So it's a very sad,
Mixed
sad
views
for
there, mixed reactions from Zimbabweans. So actually what you're talking about is there are people in Zimbabwe who believe that they've lost an icon. There are people in Zimbabwe who think that, well, this man, now that he's gone, we hope that Zimbabwe can now become a state again.
Eric, let's go just further down south. Nelson Mandela had one term of his presidency, isn't it?
Yep.
Stepped down.
Finish.
Somebody else took over. Now, what we need to discuss here, because Mugabe's earlier life is not in question, that he was a liberator, that is not in question. I would ask the question, at what point should somebody exit from active political leadership? At what point? When is a good time to exit?
Most presidential terms are between 4 to 5 years and then limited to 2. So that should give you a maximum of 10. I think that's universally accepted for some reason. So that might be a good time, 10 years. But it depends in terms of if you're fighting for liberation.
When you're bringing your country from negative something, at what point should you exit?
This is a question.
Because this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. If you look at Paul Kagame, for example, he's bringing the country from a certain point towards a certain direction. If you look at Mugabe as well, he's bringing the country from one direction to another direction. Jomo Kenyatta from one direction to another direction. At what point should you now say, all right, so I think now we're on the correct right footing. I now leave you so that you can pick somebody else to lead?
I think this is where now you have your measurements in place, whereby you say, if we're saying we're moving from negative to at least 0, and then from 0 to then
to at least 1,
to at least 1 or 2, there's certain things I think I would assume that you get to the point where you say, look, this is where we are heading to. If we're able to achieve 1, 2, 3, then it's time for me to be able to step down and give the mantle then to somebody else to continue this work. If you remained at negative, then you say, okay, maybe we're not really done with what it is. Either we're not done, or perhaps I'm not the person who can handle this, and let me give it up to somebody else. But unfortunately, we always have the introduction of the human nature that comes in. You want to remain at a position of power because it's kind of like a drug. It does something to you. You want to be able to experience that high, and that's just a human way However, I think there should be measurements that we put in place to say, look, we've been able to achieve this, 1, 2, 3. We've achieved something that we did not have before. Then now, let's leave it to somebody else, and let's see how they can now move in a forward trajectory.
You could also actually be doing it from a very positive point, where you're just thinking, winners never quit. I don't want to quit. I don't want to quit because I believe that I still have got it in me to actually lead us where I think we should go. So let me keep trying. I've got to keep trying. I will work hard at this.
Yeah, there's a good quote here. Either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. To do with timing. It's Aaron Eckhart. That's a quote.
That's a strong one. Robert Mugabe's nephew was interviewed in Zimbabwe, and he said that the man was not happy in his final days.
was bitter. He was bitter. You know, you can expect, you can imagine people that you trusted, people that were guarding you, people that were looking after your security are the same people that, you know, turn against you.
Actually,
family says
yes, he does have a point. But remember, we're talking about human beings. You place any human being in a position of authority and power long enough, they actually begin to think it belongs to them.
Mm-hmm.
And a God complex ensues. Now, when someone acquires a God complex, the problem is everything you say which doesn't agree with their thinking will be viewed in the most negative light. Those are people you can't advise. Those are people you can't tell anything because they have moved from being mere mortals to
superhumans. Superhumans.
And that comes with adulation. And the people, sometimes you even imagine that the people around them do this deliberately, knowing that so long as this person thinks this way, we will remain in power because we support him and he will continue to view us in that positive light. So it isn't so much because they believe the person is a wonderful leader, but it's because they believe it. But so long as that person is in power, their privileged position also ensues. Yes. I mean, think of the great communist countries where there was supposed to be great equality.
Did you say great communist countries?
Yes, I did.
Right. Great in terms of size? Or?
Let's get some views from
Zimbabweans.
Let's get some views from Zimbabweans. And I've got one gentleman. His name is Jera. Jera is a journalist. He's a blogger. He's the co-founder and editor of Ilizwi 263, Ilizwi 263, a website that hosts various Zimbabwean bloggers. And he's joining us this morning from Zimbabwe. Good morning, Jera.
Good morning.
Jera, welcome to the Situation Room on Spice FM in Nairobi, Kenya. You are in the Situation Room. My name is Eric Latif. In the Situation Room as well is C.T. Muga, Njeri Thorne, and Ndu Oko.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Well, Jera, you run a website that sort of puts together various bloggers in Zimbabwe. And also you're a former newspaper columnist, one of the longest-running columnists in Zimbabwe. Tell us, how was Mugabe's death received in Zimbabwe when it was announced that he passed away on Friday?
Well, Mugabe has always divided opinions, and even in death he continues to do that. You can ask me how I feel. I can't speak for other people because one of your panelists said, what's the demographic and what are they saying? I think it might need, it's funny to say this, but it might need an actual poll or a vote to say, where do we stand? Because one person you ask will say, Mugabe was better than the crocodile, Mnangagwa. Another person will say, Mugabe was just as bad. It's very difficult to say, but I can only give you my opinion about the man.
And what's your opinion? It would be interesting to hear what that is. As somebody who, shaped a lot of opinion with what you wrote as a newspaper, columnist and, running a blog on some of these issues. What is it that you felt?
Well, fortunately, I would say I was one of the young people who saw him for who he really was early on. Because I grew up in independent Zimbabwe, not knowing what was happening in Matabeleland with the massacre of about 20,000 Ndebele people, and unspeakable things happened there. Women raped, babies ripped out of their mother's wombs, people buried alive, people shot. The ones who were shot were the ones who were lucky. I didn't know this was happening because we had at the time basically one newspaper, and we had one television station. So those who were not in Matabeleland didn't know what was happening. And with time, of course, we realized what was happening, and then you realize, oh gosh, this is not the hero we thought he was. So when people say that Mugabe became a tyrant in 2002 or 2000, that's not true. He was a tyrant right from the beginning, because the massacres in Matabeleland began in 1981. So and there's some who also say that he orchestrated the deaths of some of his comrades during the war. So it's unfortunate that there was no social media then. There was no internet. There was the opinion of state-owned newspapers and state-owned television. And then we can talk about all the things that people praise him for. Number one, they say Mugabe made Zimbabwe the most educated country in Africa. That is true, but it wasn't all Mugabe, because if you go to the rural areas, which is where the majority of Zimbabweans live, some of the schools were built by white commercial farmers. Most commercial farms had a school on their farm because they didn't want the laborers' children to struggle to find schools, so they built schools. Then we talk about healthcare that was supplied by missionaries, the same missionaries that, of course, paved the way for colonialism. They had hospitals, and if you come to Zimbabwe now, you'll find that government-owned hospitals have collapsed, but the mission hospitals are still standing.
They're still standing.
Okay? When we speak of his stance on homosexuality, people say, yes, it's not African. But Robert Mugabe, when he was prime minister, remember he started off as prime minister when we were following the British system. He had a ceremonial president who was gay. Not just gay, but a molester.
Openly gay?
Which is two different things, right? Yeah, Canaan Banana. Google him.
Yep.
And he worked under or with Robert Mugabe.
Yeah.
So Robert Mugabe had no problem with gay people. It became convenient to be anti-gay because he wanted the whole of Africa behind him.
Right.
Then we move on to Robert Mugabe as the moral beacon.
Jara, as you continue to give us, your views on this, I'd like also to bring in online another comrade of yours, Zimbabwean, Sean Macheza. He's a communications specialist who's based in the Netherlands as well. Good morning, Sean. You're live on Spice FM in Nairobi, Kenya. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. You're online, and also online is Jera, who's we're calling in from Zimbabwe this morning, and we're having the conversation on the legacy of Robert Mugabe. And I don't know what I'm sure you can hear what Jera is actually emulating here. He's mentioning the areas where he feels that Mugabe had strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I think everyone says Mugabe was a complex character. But to be perfectly honest, from my perspective, there was nothing complex about the man. What was complex was about the situation around him and the way he related to different people. But he himself was always a very simple being. His quest was for power. It didn't matter who stood in his way. It didn't matter who got hurt in the process. He had a God complex from the beginning. His God complex was not something that developed with time as he was allowed to exercise his power.
Right.
If even his participation in the liberation struggle, if you read some of the accounts of how he got to join, he was away in Ghana at the time, and then when he came to visit Zimbabwe, because he spoke good English, really, is why he got opportunities to speak during particular party meetings, and this gave him an opportunity to pursue power. A good friend of mine put it very simply. He said, if a man arrives at a village and people are suffering looking for water, and he digs a well, but then once the well has been dug, he goes on to defecate in it, do we still thank him for building the well?
Well, maybe you may thank him for building the well and then start telling him, no, what you did afterwards was wrong.
Yeah.
I think I would like to ask both of you, Gerard and also Sean, the sentiment from around the continent, from different countries, and even from different parts of the world is that, understanding or taking into consideration what it is that you've both explained this morning, is that, we had an icon, a visionary, somebody who fought for the liberation of his country and then actually pushed forward, different initiatives and agenda to make sure that the people of Zimbabwe were actually liberated, as it were. We looked at the land distribution, looked at the education that you've mentioned this morning. This is what other countries, or this is what individuals in some other countries see, and this is what now they choose to laud and acclaim this man. Do you think then that outlook is flawed?
Starting with you, Gerard.
I think.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that international viewers or
participants, even in this
people
discourse,
looking on from the outside, they only just look at headlines, but they should read the subtext. There's, for instance, the land. All the rest of Africa looks at Mugabe takes back land from whites.
Right.
But they don't know who he gave it to. They don't know the circumstances surrounding his seizure of the farms, and which was that he was losing popularity and he needed to do something.
All right. Sean, do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. Mugabe was just a soft glove on a very heavy iron fist. That's why even now when he's gone, the fist remains and is now actually more brutal than it was before, because you no longer have the politician to soften the blows. What you will see even in daily life, the abusers, people who abuse their family, it only comes out in the headlines in the news afterwards that, oh, this man of God or this very stand-up citizen was abusing his children. Mugabe was very good at projecting the image of taking care of his children, but he was the drunkard father who'd come back and abuse his family, regardless of whatever circumstance was going on at the time. So it's rather sad and a pity for us Zimbabweans when you travel the continent and you say, I'm from Zimbabwe, and people say, oh, Mzee Mugabe, we like him. He did this and he did that. And it's like, well, you are buying into the narrative. Robert Mugabe never gave the land to the people by choice. War veterans had to invade a government farm in order for that land to be given to people. Robert Mugabe's job was to ensure that we had education and healthcare. And to be perfectly honest, many of the gains that we saw in the early 80s were the holdover from the previous regime. And it was also because there was a huge influx of foreign aid at the time. They were milking a cow that was so fat that you couldn't see the damage.
Right.
It was only 10, 15 years later that when they started milking the blood out that you realize, okay, so this has been going on since the beginning. The corruption started right at the beginning. The abuse of state resources started at the beginning. Read about the Willowvale scandal in the late 80s in Zimbabwe. Mugabe was never a Marxist. He was never a socialist. He was a Jesuit-trained Catholic who pursued very specific ends of power. And it's only when you now dig for some people in my generation, when we start going back in history and reading it with a discerning eye that's seeing it from the present, that we realize, indeed, the Fifth Brigade that created, people refuse to use the word genocide, but people were killed. There was upheaval in Matabeleland in the early 80s. Those people were trained prior to independence. If there's anything premeditated, there's that. So people would like to point out and say, well, there's many faces to the man.
Right.
He was a power-hungry person who used the circumstances around him to enrich himself and his clan and the people around him, and he did not matter who got hurt in the process.
Thank you.
Some of our people, their entire lives have been ruined because of Mugabe's actions.
Thank you very much, Sean. And Sean, you are living in the Netherlands. What made you leave Zimbabwe?
I was expelled from university for expressing my own views about how we preferred this. I was expressing my own views about university politics, but you see, you didn't even have that space, that academic freedom to even express your ideas as a young person.
Right.
And once you're expelled from one university, you can't study anywhere else. So I had to leave the country. I'm one of millions of Zimbabweans who have failed to make a direct contribution to their country, because to do so would be to live under a regime that could just pick you up in the middle of the night and you disappear. And this has happened to Itai Dzamara, this has happened to Beta Chokuru Rama, this has happened to multiple other people, some who survive but then are scarred for life.
Sean, have you tried to go back to Zimbabwe at any point?
Yes, I have.
And now, would you feel more comfortable now that Robert Mugabe is no longer in power? In fact, now he's passed away. Would you feel more comfortable going back to Zimbabwe?
If you want to talk about Mugabe's legacy, the biggest legacy that he left is the system that he set up where he was at the top. And unfortunately, people thought that removing Robert Mugabe would be to change Zimbabwe's political fortune. That has not been the case. It doesn't matter that you remove the figurehead when the fist itself still exists. So, unfortunately, Mnangagwa will not likely be a better leader than Robert Mugabe. In fact, he has the exact same playbook, only plays it less slick.
It's interesting that you note that you mentioned that. And Jera, I have a question for you. We're looking at a country that is basically existing in hangover of Mugabe. And now that, Sean has mentioned that, even with the current leader that we have, we don't see a different situation. Is that the outlook now, looking at a country hoping that we'll make steps in a more positive direction in terms of its government and its legacy? Are we looking then at remaining in the same situation for the duration that the current president remains in power?
Hi. I actually think I agree with Sean that they're from the same system. And one day history, when we speak of Marxism or Leninism or whatever, history will speak of Mugabeism, and he created a system. And this system was inherited by Emmerson Mnangagwa. And the only difference is that Mugabe was more eloquent. He looked the gentleman, whereas Mnangagwa has a deputy who we all know was behind the military coup.
Right.
And they're more brutish, less suave, if I may say. And Mugabeism still remains, just as Sean has said. And if you can give me the opportunity to point out that your clip showed Zimbabwean opinions.
Yep.
But I only saw one Zimbo there. The first person was Zimbabwean. The rest were probably South African, I'm not sure. That Zimbabwean people speaking on our behalf. And as Sean said, everyone is doing a disservice to Zimbabweans by calling him a hero.
Thank you very much, Jera and Sean, for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your taking your time to tell us what you think of Robert Mugabe and Zimbabwe and the days of Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. So Jera is a co-founder and editor of Ilizwi 263, a website that hosts various Zimbabwean bloggers. He's also a former newspaper columnist. And Sean is a communications specialist who's based in the Netherlands. He fled Zimbabwe when he was actually kicked out of university a couple of years ago under the regime of Robert Mugabe. Thank you to you two, gentlemen, and have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
It's not easy to talk about Robert Mugabe. Like you said, you've got to look at very many sides, very many angles, very many contexts of where Robert Mugabe was coming from, where he was heading. But if you've heard from two people who one has lived in Zimbabwe, one used to live in Zimbabwe, was a student, an academic in Zimbabwe, had to flee and to go and live elsewhere. And this is what they're thinking of Robert Mugabe's legacy is. It's a conversation that continues to happen on our social media platform as well. Spice FM KE is our Twitter handle, Spice FM KE on Facebook, and we're streaming live there, Spice FM KE on YouTube as well, and www.spicefm.co.ke. You can log on and watch this conversation. This is the Situation Room. It's 9:15. When we come back, we'll change the gears a little bit and come back to the country and ask ourselves, 2022, what do we expect?
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles. Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right, let's take
Traffic.
a look and see if the roads are looking any better this morning. Juja Road, traffic is controlled fantastically, apparently, so we don't have much of an issue there. But there is a bottleneck once you get down, again, moving to try and get out towards the CBD. We don't have any issues more than what we saw earlier. Traffic is moving along slowly. However, it is moving on Wayaki Way, on Gong Road, on Langata Road, as well as Thika Road. If you do hear of anything that we should know about, please do let us know. I know you're stuck in traffic in some of these areas, but they're moving, which is the best we can do at this time on a Monday morning. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. If you have an alternate route or if you have seen something that we should know and alert others about, do let us know.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So, former Jubilee leader David Murathe has said only Raila can stop reggae. It's only Raila who can stop Ruto in 2022. Ruto has reportedly been making overtures at Musalia Mudavadi, and Musalia Mudavadi tells him, Staki. Now, let's discuss 2022. Jerry.
My favorite topic. Interesting that it's the front page of the Standard, Murathe, only Raila can stop Ruto's bid. It's an interesting one. I don't know if Murathe realizes he's inadvertently strengthening Ruto. Showing how strong Ruto is in this. And maybe he wants other people who are interested in running to come out and say, so can I, so can I.
Yep.
I'm trying to see what the angle would have been here to say this, to make this declaration, because that's simply what it was. It's not a piece of news per se. It's a declaration. But what is the angle? Is it an opportunity to then invite those that might be interested in the seat to come out and
or maybe
say
harnessing a two-horse race.
No,
You see, the two,
or just sucking up.
to Raila?
to Raila.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely, to the point of making the headlines. Yes, that's a possibility. Then you've got the Star as well. Ruto Raila battle lines drawn in Kibra Paul. Of course, we've discussed that throughout the week. The sort of nuances and intrigues that Kibra is going to present us with in the different parties. And then Mudavadi rules out Paul pact with Ruto. So this was apparently Ruto reaching out to Mudavadi. So I want to give you my assertions, my ideas of the pairs that will go in 2022 and to analyze them. First of all, Mudavadi and Ruto. If you just look at the numbers, that would give Ruto a win. But of course, the Luhya nation is very divided, and Mudavadi is not a good candidate to go to for deputy. I think Mudavadi should run himself. For deputy, his followers, if you look at it as a voting bloc, the Luhya voting bloc would be divided, for sure. Then you've got Ruto Mudavadi, Raila Gideon, a possibility. That looks quite strong for me.
Raila President, Gideon Deputy President.
This is all taking into account that we won't, this is under the circumstances that we don't have a referendum, and so we don't have a presidential system, and the constitution stays as it is. Although my prediction is that there will be a referendum and there will be a presidential system, so we'll have both a president and a prime minister, and of course there'll be deputies there, so the power play will be completely different. But as things stand, and as we see the headlines and we watch the political games going on at the moment, I mean, Ruto is making serious mileage. Everybody's talking about him and him being president. So it's also being entrenched into the fore, or, in terms of availability. You think of President 2022, you think of Ruto. So he's getting a lot of attention, and he's very good at this, of course. Even if there's any scandal, he'll say it wasn't me, and nobody's even suggested it was him. So he ties himself to any headlines in terms of name recognition, other than the fact that, of course, we all know him. But in terms of being at the fore of our thought process when it comes to 2022, of course, Ruto is there. Some people have considered a Ruto Waigoro presidency. Of course, that brings a woman into the fold, which would be novice enough, or rather, it will be enough of a novelty for people to get excited enough to forget that it's a Kalenjin and a Kikuyu, because, of course, that too is at play. Then you've got Ruto Raila.
Oil and water.
Ruto Raila or Raila Ruto?
Raila Ruto.
The way you say it also matters.
Absolutely. Raila Ruto.
Raila Ruto, not Ruto Raila.
Well, of course, I think that's an impossibility. I thought I'd throw that one in because it exists as a possibility in theory, which is what probabilities are anyway.
Yep.
Theory. So it'd be interesting to hear from the listeners.
And last week you told us Raila Waigoro.
Raila Waigoro, actually my money is on that. Although I have a mild suspicion Raila himself might not run. He might front Mudavadi. I think we're going to have a Mudavadi Waigoro.
So do you think Ruto has also seen that, and that's why he's trying to confuse Mudavadi?
I don't think Mudavadi can be confused.
That's what Ruto's
doing. Just thinking.
I mean, he's had a history of saying things that actually opening his mouth to save him.
Just play mind games on Mudavadi. If in case you're approached by that other side, just remember.
That is the only time the Luyas will come together, if they have a presidency, not a deputy. If they're heading for a presidency or attempting at presidency. If it's a deputy, there'll be many people, Wetangula will be there. There's Boni Khalwale who will deputize somebody else and so on. But if they have somebody at the helm, i.e. they're going for the presidency, I see the Luo Nation coming together as a voting bloc and one to be reckoned. Luya, sorry, my apologies.
You know that you mentioned Boni Khalwale deputizing. Remember, Boni Khalwale is working very closely with
he's been sucking up to
William Ruto.
To Ruto, absolutely.
So Ruto Khalwale?
The Luya bloc as a deputy is futile. It's obsolete simply because they can't come together. There'll be somebody else deputizing somebody else. But if you can imagine, as a Luya myself, if I'm voting for somebody who's going to be president, given the way we think, I'm having to speak in these terms and the way, because this is the nature of our politics here in Kenya. But a Luya deputy is of no consequence. In fact, I think they carry no currency as deputies, because you could have 5 of them and they would divide the vote. Whereas if somebody is at presidency level, I think the Luyas would all come together for that. Just even as an individual, you're going to vote for this guy. He'll be president.
Right. It's Succession Mondays, and this is the day when Njeri Thorne looks at her crystal ball. And today, her crystal ball is just all jumbled up. It's got so many...
Today I'm leaning on Mudavadi Waigoro, although I did see an endorsement of Gideon over the weekend by a certain community.
Yep. There was that too. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Please, just add another name that hasn't been mentioned by Njeri, because she's just going around the same.
There's rumors.
Same
There's
names.
rumors of Matiangi, of course.
There you go.
Matiangi coming in.
At least
that
the crystal ball has started seeing other people.
The crystal ball is expanding.
At least
it's just polished.
Now we can see
in the ball before. She just cleaned it up, so now she can see clearer.
How about Muhisa Kitui?
What about him?
Mentioned
yes. He's come up in conversations, I suppose, and he's very well sort of lined up for that in terms of trade and what he's done for Kenya as well with the World Trade Organization. But no, again, if you look at the politics,
what has he done exactly?
CT is giving you
he's brought a very big.
Opened many doors for the trade agenda for Kenya.
He's a high-ranking Kenyan in international space, and he's performed well according to.
I am asking.
It's UNCTAD. Did I say well?
UNCTAD. These wonderful things and these wonderful goodies, what are they? That's what I'm asking.
So we want goodies.
He's actually brought delegations. He's brought delegations. He's brought conferences to Kenya. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The UNCTAD meeting happened here.
In Kenya.
He's brought one of the richest people in China here.
But again, he falls into the.
So
Did he win his seat in Kimilili last when he last went for it? He didn't.
No.
Was it him? And so if he's not getting his backyard, then I doubt he would.
You see, that was in when was it? 2007 when there were issues, right? But before that, he had won the Kimilili seat.
But the fact that he lost it says, it speaks volumes in terms of local politics.
You know, even Musalia Mudavadi had lost a seat, huh? And here you're putting him right up there.
Musalia has also been at the fore in terms of he's been in opposition. Also, his father, so he's got roots.
Yes, and he's been a vice president. No, Mudavadi, the comparison
is a prince.
Well, if you want to call him that, but Mugisa Kitui did well as a politician, rose to the level of being a minister. That's fine. But even then, he wasn't the leader of the party that his particular community is aligned to.
Kiraito Murungi, of course, somebody else.
There's a good choice.
So why aren't you going to the coast? Are you saying that the coast doesn't have?
She has only begun. Surely she's moving. She's in Eastern Province. Give her time.
West and then south.
This crystal ball is going to be big.
Kiraito Mudavadi is a possibility, but I keep saying Luya as a deputy is obsolete in terms of going for a candidate, putting a Luya candidate because the votes will be split. So it could be Mudavadi Kiraito. Kiraito is doing very well in Central in terms of leadership, of course, also because he's also not viewed as a Kikuyu. So the anti-Kikuyu sentiments allows him the mileage
when it comes to
for
region,
national leadership.
It's all considered Mount Kenya.
He's not viewed as a Kikuyu because he is not a Kikuyu.
Well, we have Eric here saying that he is Kikuyu.
It's all considered Mount Kenya. I mean, when it comes to the election,
it depends on the framing. It depends on how we frame this. It could be considered Mount Kenya, or the papers could shape it differently and actually shape our perceptions, and it's not Mount Kenya. But if you put him forward, people will say at least he's not a Kikuyu. I'm sorry to speak so raw, but this is the case, and these are the conversations people are having, which are okay. They're not divisive per se, but these are the conversations people are having. We don't want another Kikuyu, and understandably so. So if Kiraito Murungi is put there, it will be viewed by the Kikuyu as our guy. So he'll get the Kikuyu block. Of course, so that's all of Mount Kenya. And then he could have some support from non-Kikuyu community because he's not a Kikuyu per se.
Safe pair of hands again.
Who, Kiraito Murungi?
Yeah.
I don't know. Not as safe as Mudavadi.
So Mudavadi, has always Mudavadi has been called before the safe.
Why do you consider Mudavadi safe and Kiraito
Mudavadi is not radical. I'm not saying Kiraito is. Kiraito, of course, is a seasoned politician.
Jerry, what are you saying? Because what you're saying and what you're not saying, what are you saying?
Or you could have Kiraito Matiangi.
So we don't have a Maasai. We don't have any of...
Do the Maasai community have a leader after...
Who stands out?
After Olentimama?
Olentimama, Keen, Saitoti. I can't think of anybody.
I mean, does somebody stand out?
A Maasai leader? No.
No, nobody stands
out.
In
the community?
Really.
No, do they have someone among them, among the Maasai? Do they consider someone? Because this isn't a decision for someone who's a non-Maasai to make. Do they consider to have someone who stands out the premier?
Who's their spokesperson?
If they do, perhaps this would have been expressed until at this point.
Maybe
we don't see anybody who has stood out.
There's a governor who's serving his second term. And now, from that point on, he moves on to national politics. That's a Narok governor, right? He's moving into national politics, of course, after this. I mean, where else do you go? We've got the Olentutu family also is considered the family itself, right? It's considered influential in Maasai politics. They've got sons who are in government as well. You've got all these people. And then let's move from the Maa community. Let's go into the coast. All the way from Taita Taveta to Kwale.
All right, Eric, tell us who.
He wants to say Mvuria.
No. I want to say ODM.
Actually, I would
ODM
suppose
to say the same, right? Yes.
Because
ODM vice chairman
has proven to be. He's actually made strides and brought about changes in his county.
This is very true. Even even if we just want to look at the fact that he gave Kwale a facelift and then brought it to the fore in terms of what was being discussed by
So the
this
conversation
council.
has been opened now this morning by Njeri, who has shaken her crystal ball. It's got very many names today, and let's help her to filter them out and actually just look at
Mudavadi
them.
Kiraito. At this very minute, I'm seeing Mudavadi Kiraito.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600 is the number we're using this morning. What do you think? What's your crystal ball showing you for 2022? Please give us some names that are not in Jerry Thorne's crystal ball. Somebody else who stands out. Somebody like the ODM vice chairman, who's the governor of Mombasa County, who is 001. He has also expressed interest in being the president.
Of
this
which
is the
country?
Situation Room. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
Right, so now we know what the reason was why there's traffic heading into the CBD, and it seems that there was an accident at the railways roundabout with a bus and a lorry, so the situation is quite jam-packed, as it were. Langata Road, bumper-to-bumper jam. Thika Road, bumper-to-bumper jam. Langata Road, bumper-to-bumper equals? This is what we are seeing right now along most of the roads. Waiaki Way also, we do have a problem just at about Brookside. The traffic has dissipated quite a bit, but we get some bottlenecks there at the Brookside junction. That's what the roads look like right now. Hopefully we have a better situation as time goes by. It is Monday morning. That's what traffic looks like, unfortunately. If there's anything that you see as an alternate, do give us a call or send us a message, and we'll see how we can get you moving some more this Monday morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Njeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
3 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the Situation Room. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 Malindi. We are streaming live, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. Our telephone number this morning, 0719-012-600. What do you think of the 2022 politics shaping up? A crystal ball from Njeri Thorne says, again, I keep forgetting who you keep saying, Musalia Kiraito.
Yes, it's looking strong.
Musalia Mudavadi, President, Kiraito Morongi, Deputy President.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking you, what about Ali Hassan Joho, the governor of Mombasa County?
Joho will make it as far as deputy, if that, as a populist.
Well, so who's deputy?
But also, who exactly is Joho bringing in? What demographic would he be bringing in? He's very popular at the coast, but what percentage of Kenyans are coastarians?
He's a kiongozi of the coastal bloc.
Mm-hmm. How big is the coastal bloc? And also the coastal bloc is then further divided in terms... Carry on, sorry, CT.
Oh, no. I'm you know, when I'm agreeing with you, I simply keep quiet and listen. When I disagree with you, you'll hear me say something.
You were about to say something.
You're breathing hard. Like, you know,
You're about to say something.
Breathing, Eric.
It will be very interesting because, of course, a lot of governors will have come up to their second term and they can't do more than 2 terms. So they'll definitely be looking at national politics.
Joe, one of them.
I'm thinking a lot of them will be angling for executive positions, of course, because there's only so many positions. But I want us to discuss Kalenjin politics. There was that clip that was doing the rounds of Gideon Moy being endorsed in Mount Elgin by elders, or there was a ceremony celebrating him. I don't know how poignant it is in that community, but I know in the Kikuyu community, when you're endorsed by the elders, it's a very strong, it's a recommendation basically for leadership. So even within the rift, you're looking at, they still haven't decided. We've got Ruto, yes, but does he have the backing of all the rift? Given that Mandago could also be eyeing national politics, and we all remember what happened with Mandago and Ruto when Ruto fronted his guy Buzeki in the run-up, was it in the run-up to 2017?
In 2017.
And you saw the backlash from the rift population, which was a clear indicator that Ruto probably doesn't enjoy the support that he purports to have. So even as a Kalenjin leader, or within that, the bloc, you've got three people there. You've got Mandago, you've got Gideon, and you've got Ruto. I'm still viewing it like that.
What
Are we
about,
still seeing Isaac Ruto?
Yes, I was thinking about that gentleman. Yes.
Isaac Ruto. Pesa mashinani.
No, on a national platform, he would back Gideon Kanu. I don't think he would run against Gideon. He would back Gideon.
So
it would
Chama
be Kanu.
Mashinani would back Kanu.
Would back
in
Kanu.
this particular one. That's what you see.
That's what my bowl is telling me at the moment.
CT, do you have any bowl? All right.
We
mustn't.
The issues
you don't
surrounding-
operate on bowls.
No, the issues surrounding witchcraft, I leave to Jerry.
All this speculation. We mustn't let the headlines run away with us when we see Ruto at the fore all the time. The grassroots politics is very different, and those are the masses and they're the voters. Not everybody is reading the papers. It's only a certain demographic that is reading the papers. You will find a lot of
Others
people
consume radio, which is also picking headlines from the papers.
Yes, it would amplify some of the headlines from the paper, absolutely. But it's, some of these headlines, it's hard to put on.
You know, the common Mwananchi does not understand that even popularity can be contrived.
Orchestrated,
This is
manufactured.
one time when you've said the common Mwananchi does not understand. I think it goes on record as the first time
ever
that CT Muge actually said that.
They don't understand
Eric, you are a
the
common
dynamics of
Mwananchi.
this.
Yes.
Everyone in this room
But you
is a
said we are the
common
most
Mwananchi.
intelligent. We said we
are
are the ones who are
intelligent,
running
but
this
even
show.
the most intelligent cannot tell sometimes when something is contrived.
Well, yes.
It's just a fact.
Indeed.
What about Sonko? Should we throw him into the...
Yes.
Now CT is smiling.
That's
really.
man.
Listen.
Let me give out the number. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Who else do you think, or what do you think of the names that we are mentioning this morning as possible candidates and deputy for president and deputy in the forthcoming general election? That's 2022. It's clear. Even if we change the constitution halfway through, right? I hope we're not changing the date for the elections as well. But what do you think? 0719-012-600. I would love to know what you think. Also, the conversation is on Facebook and Twitter. Spice FM KE on Facebook, and we are live streaming there. Spice FM KE on YouTube. Spice FM KE on Twitter as well. Right. So, all those names that you've said. Ledema Olekina, Senator of Narok County. First time, yes. But he's emerging as a very strong person and
as I said,
vocal and all. But of course,
these leadership issues, especially when you're referring when you talk about
communities.
within a community, it's them. Look, someone like Reitu stands out. There are people who may be baying at his heels, wanting to be sort of like leadership or a leader of his quality, but they are not. It's not even complicated.
So then aren't we looking at a selection of political leadership from what we know as opposed to what we would hope for? Because then, as you said, these are individuals who stand out because they've had a run at politics before, because they are, gaining and continue to cover ground, and they've been at it for a long
track record.
Yeah, they have a track record. They continue to cover ground even in the arena where they play currently. And because of that, that's now how we're able to, use Jerry's ball and say, well, because of this, maybe these are the possible partnerships that we could see then for the next round of 2022 when we come at this again.
Looking at all those names.
We're also saying we're looking at a point now whereby we say you're not going to have somebody who's going to pop out of the woodwork and suddenly spread out an agenda and say, this is how I intend to rule the country should I be given the chance and the opportunity. Our selection is going to come from who has had a run at it before and who is the loudest.
So of all those people then, who has had a run at it before? Only Raila has taken a stab at the president. Well, William Ruto has taken a stab at the presidency as in a ticket. Who else?
Mudavadi has.
Mudavadi has. When was he on the ballot as a presidential candidate?
Are you saying Mudavadi has never been
on the ballot as a presidential candidate?
Yes.
When? If we go to 2002,
wait.
he was a he was a vice president, but he was supporting Uhuru Kenyatta.
As leader of ANC, are you saying he did not
At
present
what
himself?
point has Musalia
I am
Mudavadi
asking
been
the
on
question.
the ballot?
When he was leader of ANC.
I don't remember. He's still leader of ANC, remember? And ANC is a very new body from the other election. So in 2002 he wasn't.
Remember in
2007, he
Mhm.
wasn't. He was a deputy to Raila. Well, yes.
In
that's it, right?
2013, there was a clear expression of interest and some level of backing for Mudavadi very briefly.
He did not end up at the ballot.
No,
He was talked to and then
he
stepped
wasn't.
down.
Right?
He wasn't. There's something else we're not
Madimoni
considering.
came in.
There's one thing we're not considering, the Somali community. I'm very interested in seeing what the census looks like in terms of numbers. Of course, numbers translate into votes. And I know they're very interested in positions, so to well, everybody is. But I think maybe we can throw in Duale. Ambitious guy, represents quite a big, what will be a big community after we see the
how
census.
About Yusuf Haji?
DPP? Or his father?
No, his father.
His
the
father.
senator of Garissa.
His father.
You know, chairman of BBI. Right?
No,
He's there.
definitely.
And he's been in national politics. Well, not in national politics per se, but he's been in national leadership. He was a long-serving
DC in Nakuru.
PC in Rift Valley.
In Nakuru, yeah.
And then now he's gone into national politics. He's there right now as the senator, right?
And can you see why it should start to emerge the importance of having a presidential system if we want to feel there's an inclusive sense of leadership in Kenya? Parliamentary system that incorporates, that brings in a president, a prime minister, and a deputy for both. Already, just the names we're talking about: Kiraito, Waiguru, Joho, Mudavadi, Kivuda. We haven't spoken about him enough. I'll come back to him, but he's more of a technocrat. He lacks the political oomph, so to speak. I don't think he can actually.
He has run an
play.
executive.
He gets things done.
I think
he gets things done, but I don't think he understands power play or he has the wherewithal to bear power play.
Look what he has
did
done.
very well in his first term, and there was a lot of in terms of managing his MCAs, letting them go and rebuilding it
So
again.
he
Yes,
understands power
but at a
play.
national level, I think he's a technocrat. He's got too much integrity to do some of the
Too
dirty.
much integrity. Let's cross him out.
Yeah, there's a problem
He's
where
too
you
clean.
do have. He's too clean.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 2013, there was a party called UDF, United Democratic Front.
Yes.
And
Musalia
Mudavadi stood, he was a
Oh,
presidential
yes,
candidate
yes,
with
yes,
someone
yes.
as Kioni, who was
Yes,
his,
with Kioni. Yes. I
Oh,
beg
ye
your pardon.
naysayers.
I remember. And I take that back.
I do remember him declaring.
After Madimoni turned on him,
Yes,
he
he
actually
did.
said, Mr. Kioni, come, let's
Yes,
buy. Yes,
and what was interesting was
Asante.
that, yes, thank you very much. I think I will rest this particular case.
This particular case.
There. Let me savor this victory.
Okay, and we were talking about that with regards to who else has had a stab at the presidency.
Yes.
And we've said it's Raila and Mudavadi.
Yes. Right.
I personally don't see Raila on the ballot box. Maybe he might be president, which would be appointed if it's a parliamentary system. So again, my money is on Mudavadi there. But it'll be interesting to hear what the callers have to say in terms of opinion and who's 2022 president. That'll be very interesting. Sonko, you were going to bring in your man Sonko.
Before you bring in your man
Which
Sonko.
demographic would he be representing?
Why is
Be-
it that
before-
when
before you-
someone,
before you
when
bring in
someone
your
mentions
Sonko.
the possibility, why is it not your man Joho?
Or your man
No.
Kiraito.
Eric's
why is
man
that
is
your-
Ruto.
Yes.
Eric's man is Ruto. That one we know.
My
that
man,
much.
I'm going to give you my man at the end of this. It's the man that you don't consider, all of you. I mean, and we keep
Why
wondering.
don't you consider Kiraito my man? Because
I've
I've
got
been
Eric.
Yes.
Eric in Nairobi. Eric, good morning.
Morning to you.
Who's your man or woman for 2022?
My man for 2022 is William Ruto,
Mm-hmm.
but that is only so far as we are going to have a free and fair electoral process.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless somebody is new in Kenyan politics, one ought to know that Ruto is not a guy you can overlook.
And his deputy, who do you see? What's your crystal ball telling you?
Everybody will be shocked because whatever predictions, however brilliant we can make,
Mm.
Ruto will always manage to shock us. For that, I cannot predict,
Mm-hmm.
but I see him trying to, to woo the ladies.
Waigoro.
It will probably be, Anne Waigoro.
So you see Kikuyu Kalenjin presidency. You don't see any backlash, any resistance to that?
Definitely, somebody will have to make the Kikuyus feel included.
Mm-hmm.
If
Lest they feel
don't,
excluded. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they feel like they are excluded, you're gone. You're done.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the Kikuyus have to be in the fold. That's your take.
Yeah, that's my take.
Okay. Do you not think maybe with Ruto it's just a matter of perception? The papers are giving him a lot of airtime and he doesn't enjoy the support that he purports to?
No, that would be self-deceit. If we try to dismiss this guy, whatever predictions we make, we are wrong.
He has to feature.
Yeah, we'll have to remember
Mm-hmm.
Kenyan politics. The masses don't vote, technically speaking.
Mm.
The party colors vote.
I see.
Right. And
yeah, like the other day we were discussing and we said that Anne Waiguru and I think I'm here to correct some perception that we drove out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we said that she's a strong figure in Mount Kenya politics.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason behind it was that she managed to beat Martha Karua, who is a veteran politician in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we should have considered that she wore Jubilee colors.
Right. So the party propelled her.
Yeah, and despite that, Martha Karua still managed to get a huge chunk of the votes.
Yeah.
In fact, to the extent that she still had a valid point to take to the court to contest the election.
Mm.
So I would assume if they were both neutral candidates without political party backing, probably the outcome would have been different.
But of course, even within the party nominations, she did well. Remember, she is a novice, so she must have some standing. She must have done very well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you very much for calling. I also have Roderick on the line. Roderick, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
How is everyone?
Good.
Very well, thank you.
Everyone is fine, Roderick. And how are you?
I'm good. I think Raila Odinga shouldn't run in the next election. I'm a diehard supporter, but I don't think he should run in the next election.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is that Raila Odinga's name has been so damaged in Central and Rift Valley. In the previous election, him to go and ask for vote. Raila Odinga should just become a king next.
Mm-hmm.
You see? Bank on Mudavadi and take this thing. But,
Absolutely.
but the perception that is going around that this state should be just prepared to the two sides, I think it's what the BBI is trying to address. However, the much bashing the BBI is receiving, people should just sit down, relax, take a breather, and ask their political, just put their political affiliations aside and think, where are the other tribes? Because this state has just been between two tribes since independence. And the way the BBI is being addressed, what the BBI is addressing is that to put an inclusivity of all other tribes. You see? But Raila Odinga being on the ballot, for me personally, I think he shouldn't be on the ballot.
Who do you think he should
Them has
endorse?
been damaged. So I think, Mudavadi should up his game.
Why Mudavadi?
Mudavadi should up his game. Mudavadi can do a good job, but he should up his game. Okay, people see him as
Don't
a
say
very
it.
soft guy.
Don't say it.
As a very, very lead
He's
back
gentle.
guy or something.
He's a
He's
safe
a
pair
very
of
gentle
hands.
man. But in Kenyan politics, I don't think you need somebody who's gentle again.
Absolutely.
Kenyans will show sometimes you need somebody to crack the whip and
Right.
doesn't care a bit,
So, Roderick,
yeah.
you're basically saying you think Raila should disown Kalonzo.
Not really disown Kalonzo.
You know,
think
I thought
Raila
they had a
and
pact. I
Kalonzo
thought they had a pact that, I run in as your deputy, and then you shall support me in my time when my time comes.
In Kenyan politics, there's no permanent deal, my friend. Now what's happening to our friend?
What you say today is a totally different reality tomorrow.
Where is-
and
where
we've
is-
already
where is
agreed that a day in,
integrity?
in Kenyan politics is actually quite long.
Also, I think what happened with the introduction of counties, Kalonzo lost that the block that he had because now you have
Kingship.
you have Mutua coming in, and of course there's Charity Ngilu.
Kivuga.
So Kalonzo doesn't have the block that
Clout.
he has the clout and that he's known, but in terms of voting block, he doesn't have the numbers.
He doesn't have
So
the
he's
number.
of no consequence. He's not somebody you need to negotiate with. Mudavadi, on the other hand, as a president, you've got a whole Luya
But
community
if you
block
talk about
who've
that,
wanted to be.
Look. If you talk about that, if you're saying that the only reason you're saying Kalonzo is diminished is because we have the emergence of Charity Ngilu,
Along
who's
with
been
other
there
things,
before.
he's been there a while and he hasn't done very much for the.
Look at Musalia as well. Look at
Kalonzo
Musalia as well.
side-
But then in that area we also have Eugene Omalwa. We've got Oparanya,
No,
the
but
Kakamega
no.
governor. You've
No,
got
Eugene
Muhisa
is an
Kitui.
unstarter. Eugene is an unstarter. Muhisa Kitui has a job somewhere. That's what I'm saying. Mudavadi has to up his game.
Eh.
And the government takes the Luya vote, one. That's the job that he needs to do. And also, when he goes to the negotiating table, he has to have that clout that he has galvanized the Luya community. Very many people will go with Mudavadi right now as they speak. But unless he ups his game, Kalonzo should just do the Tekmali thing, and Raila, they just become kingmakers. Just this sacrifice for a better Kenya. But if not so, the same problems will sweeping under the carpet, voting tribal lines, and other nonsense that happens in Kenyan politics.
So are you saying, Roderick, that the elections in Kenya are actually won by people actually voting?
No, actually, I actually think they are boardroom.
Boardroom selection.
Boardroom decisions are bad. And my worry is that probably Raila Odinga has come to the board.
He's chairing the board now.
He's a board member, is he?
Thank you very much, Roderick. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, Roderick. 0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. We'd love to know what you think. What do you think of the 2022 politics and how it's emerging? So, Jerry, you said you want to come to Kivutha Kibwana at a later stage. Do you think that stage is now? Can we talk about Kivutha now?
No. I mentioned him. I think I said what I wanted to say about him. I don't have much more
Then
to
let's
say.
talk about Dr. Alfred Mutua.
He's a technocrat. And I don't think he can handle power politics at a national level. Dr.
Alfred Mutua?
Brilliant PR initially. And he's got a following, the young Kamba, within Machakos. The younger demographic, the younger generation speak very highly of him. Of course, he's having to battle Kalonzo for this following.
Supremacy.
Yes, so I think Kalonzo still has it. Maybe at 60%, he's got 40%.
They've been working together
of that following.
The three governors of Ukambani.
Of course, to fight off Kalonzo's. Kalonzo's power.
What if the other two actually endorsed Dr. Alfred Mutua?
Kalonzo still comes in. It should still be a split vote. The
But
minute
Kalonzo
you
is
split
not on
a
the
block.
ballot. You have not put
In
Kalonzo
terms,
anywhere.
no. There's nobody on the ballot. Even the other two are not on the ballot per se. It's their currency as leaders, where they'll take their voting block. And do they have any currency? So with Kalonzo, the minute you split a community, the minute you split whether it's the Luyas or not, they lose their currency.
And Jerry does have a point. Remember, even if you're a governor, you will have people who don't like you.
Yes.
And not all of the, if you now want to ascend to the seat of presidency, the enemies will come out and they'll support someone whom they have no quarrel with, and that will be Kalonzo. Yes. So the dynamics of politics, we tend to bring certain rules that we have in everyday life or in our Christian life or in our religious life or in our social lives into politics. Politics functions by totally different rules. And it must be understood. And we must understand it from those particular rules. And those dynamics are just that they're dynamic. They change all the time.
So apart from Madam Waigoro, which other woman do you see?
Why did we leave out Martha?
That's a question.
She'll be running.
So Martha Karua.
She will be running in 2022.
In 2022.
Absolutely.
Should she be running for presidency or for governor?
She is running for presidency.
Remember, Charity Ngilu also ran for president.
You're stating this as a
I
fact,
am stating
right?
it categorically.
Like
we can call her
categorically.
and ask her. She will be on that ballot
In
for
2022.
in 2022. Of course, she's got two things working against her. First of all, she's a woman. I don't think we're ready for a woman president. Secondly, she's Kikuyu. We're not going to have another Kikuyu president. People just will not vote in that direction. So she's got those two things going against her. Of course, I have a lot of support for Martha personally. I think she's a very strong woman. I think she's a very strong person, a great leader with a lot of integrity. Would be perfect for us even on an international platform when it comes to negotiating and putting Kenya out there and making sure we get the best deals, whether it's IGAD, whatever negotiations we're doing. Security Council, getting onto that. She's somebody I'd be very proud to call my president on such a platform. So it's a shame, though. It won't happen because of those two factors.
This last point that you've made, Jerry, just now about, being proud to call someone the president because of what it is they were able to offer and then deliver for the country. Let's just pretend that that's how we've... let's pretend...
Let's go into your utopian world.
Let's go there for a while and exist for a few minutes. Let's pretend that those are actually the lines along which we vote. Why shouldn't we plug these individuals into that framework and say, are you then able to look into your crystal ball and say, with these attributes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that we would look to use to propel this country in a forward-moving trajectory, who then would fit into these particular blocks from these names that have been floated, or perhaps names that have not been floated? If we use that as a framework to then decide and assume that that's how the people vote, who then would be the individuals that would fit into these blocks? From your crystal ball, Jerry.
See, my ball is not rational, so you're starting to
because
rationalize.
it's based on the city's witchcraft.
Might you have a utopian bowl somewhere that you
would-
can look at? Oh, that doesn't exist. I mean, your blood doesn't flow utopia at all. You just
I would say Makueni governor and Martha together.
That's people who would help turn this country. City.
Absolutely, but as the electorate, they don't vote rationally. They don't know what's good for them, and this is why we're not ready for democracy. According to one of the people that we spoke
to this morning, don't vote
at all. About some, unique utopian boardroom sort of like decision. She knows more than all of us here that it doesn't work like that. It doesn't.
I was put into a box. You guys said give us the perfect utopian.
No, I
duo.
said if we pretend that people,
all this is pretense.
If we pretend that people vote along,
all this is pretense. If people were to vote along,
meaning let our imagination run wild.
Yes. If we are voting along the lines
let's be hopeful for once
that a leader is actually going to come and will be elected based on the fact that he can deliver or she can deliver for the country. If that is what we're using to vote along, who then would be able to put into these particular holes?
And I would say Martha Karua, especially for justice and the social pillar, and then Kivutha Kibwana for the economic pillar, which is what the country needs.
Karua.
Which is what the country needs.
I would put Kivutha Kibwana in there. I'd also put...
Are you just going with a wave?
No. I'm not going with any
Which
wave.
Which
wave?
There was a wave before,
any
the
wave?
Twitter woke.
No, we are still in that imaginative
supposed
world.
We're still imagining that people vote along the lines of somebody can take...
But even within this realm of imagination, are you still going with other people's opinion, or that's you genuinely feel?
From what I've seen,
Jerry, whose opinion were you going by?
Mine. I form opinions.
So why can't Eric go by his?
So why can't I have my own opinion? You see, I've seen Kivutha Kibwana from the days of Fungamano, from how he pushed for the new constitution, from how he stood for what's right. He has been there. Then he actually saw this is an opportunity for me to demonstrate what I mean by good leadership. He went and vied for governor of Makueni. He ran the county. We have all talked about what kind of work he's done in Makueni County. So I look at him and I see, you know what, if we gave this man a chance, he'd come in there and he'd stay clear of this kind of politics that we are.
And clean up the house.
Well, we've seen him staying clear of some of these things, even at the risk of his life.
Exactly. He'd get us out of this box. And remember, I keep saying, I do not want to stay in this box. I want to stay out of this box where we're looking at people and saying, how many votes would you bring in as a Kamba? How many votes would you bring in as a
For that reason,
Kikuyu?
I support Sonko. Because Sonko is a pioneer in non-tribal politics.
Not necessarily pioneer, but go ahead.
He's risen to the fore.
At this level, the new generation he is actually.
Absolutely. For that reason, I support Sonko. I think if we did start voting with the parameters that people voted for Sonko, then we would be moving away from the tribal politics. But I think the only solution to us, we've tried devolution, people still feel like excluded. The only
When
solution
you
is
talk
the
about
parliamentary system.
When you use that yardstick for Nairobi leaders, it's going to be different. Johnson Sakaja as well has been voted for not by Luyas. People don't even know whether he's Luya, Luo, whatever. They vote for Johnson Sakaja.
He's not governor.
And he doesn't have he didn't garner 800,000 votes.
He didn't garner 800,000
without a tribal base.
Yes.
That is pretty amazing. What I'm saying is he's the pioneer, and I'm not saying he's the only one. Yes, Sakaja has come in and he's done very well, but
what is
Sonko has not sold himself through tribe. He sold himself, of course, it's the rags to riches story and so on. And
Peter Kenneth sold himself through youth, not through tribe.
How did that help him?
We have Peter Kenneth as well.
But he stood by that.
Did he?
Yes, he stood by that.
The youth
and the 30,000 people, the 30,000 of us who voted for him, did not vote for him because he's Kikuyu or not.
You voted for him because of what you thought that he would be able to deliver
yes,
for this country.
Eric,
how
we cannot.
he
We don't know
explained
what
himself.
other
For the
people
presidential,
voted.
you voted for him?
Yes, in
What a
2013.
wasted vote.
That's exactly what people say.
What a
wasted vote. It's for the
what a
future of the
wasted
country.
vote.
It's for the future of the country. Rodney
Eric.
Osumba also stood for something. And you know, look at how those two worked.
Eric, this is politics. Please allow
It's
us
29
to
minutes
disparage
to
your
10
preferred
o'clock.
candidate.
It's 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. The conversation we're having this morning is succession politics, Succession Mondays. 2022, how is it shaping up? Our number is 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We'd love to know exactly what you think. Who should feature in this crystal ball? And I'm telling Jerry, let's look at other people who are not like, those run-of-the-mill politicians who've been there, done that, who've been tried, have been tested. They have been found wanting. They have not been elected. And now we keep throwing them back and back and back again. Let's pick somebody new. What do you think? 0719-012-600. 29 minutes to 10.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Traffic situation heading out of the city towards Ngatarongai, and the students of Multimedia University have gone on strike. So there are police on the road and there's tear gas being spewed all over the place. However, that means that it has affected traffic into and out of that road. So if you're heading in that direction, just know that that is what will be holding you up. As they disperse, I'm sure they're going to clear up the situation. All right, we still have traffic on Thika Road even at this hour, and hope now we've been told that police are conducting traffic, and we hope that that will dissipate as we go along. All right, we seem to have cleared up the situation on Mombasa Road, as well as Ngong Road, as well as Jogo Road. So things are moving along smoothly as the minutes tick by. Don't forget to send us a message or give us a call if you see anything that we should know or pass on information about. 0719-012-600.
mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Streaming live on YouTube, Spice FM KE. Streaming live on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and also www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the Situation Room. Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and CT Muga. We are discussing succession politics today, Succession Monday, 2022. How are you seeing it shaping up? Would love to know what you think. 0719-012-600. What candidate would you like to see on the ballot come 2022 in the general election? Are you being railroaded, like some of us are, into believing into tribal politics and vote for this person because they're going to bring a tribal vote? Or are you going to be independent-minded? Are you going to think what you're being called utopian and bring a new leader? Or shall you go into Jerry Thorne's crystal ball and pick Musalia Mudavadi and Kiraito Morongi for your candidates? Or are you going with CT Muga and say, why don't we have Mike Movie Sonko
and
on the
Kiraito
ballot?
Morongi.
And Kiraito Morongi.
Why not that combination?
That combination.
Yes, why
Mike
not that
Sonko,
combination?
Kiraito Morongi.
Yes.
Sonko doesn't have the national appeal that he does in Nairobi.
And this national appeal, what
comes from where? Where does it come from?
He's got it in Nairobi. I don't
No, I'll
think
tell
you
you
have people in
something.
Kericho talking about Sonko. No, not
I have
grassroots.
seen it.
You
I
don't
have
have
seen
people
it.
in the village talking about
I have
Sonko.
seen
And
it in
you
Turkana.
know what happens in all villages in Kenya, Jerry?
Absolutely.
I've seen it in
everything.
Turkana on the
crystal
news.
ball.
From the crystal ball. Jerry, I've seen it in Turkana, where the president actually during the campaigns had gone to Turkana with the deputy president when they were campaigning. And Sonko had accompanied them. And the crowd literally shouted, "We want Sonko to address us."
Yes.
Sonko,
Oh, really?
Sonko.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And when Sonko stood up to speak, they were elated.
When I tell you that man has rock star status,
It's countrywide.
Yes, I'm not saying this because of any other particular reason other than that. That's actually the sort of status he has.
So he'd make for a good DP. Somebody would want to pick him for a DP.
Why not
He'd
president?
bring
Or
the
why not
numbers.
presidency? We had a DJ president in Precious.
Roderick, can you hear that? Roderick, do you hear what City is saying? No, Roderick, no, he's not online. I'm just saying, you remember what Roderick told us.
Where's Yegan today? I haven't heard from him. But just to remind everybody, the people we have on the list so far, you're looking to throw in new people into the mix. You want something novel and something different. So we've got Matiang'i, of course, people have talked about him. He's
Thank
got
you.
the reputation of being tough, and he seems to do very well in all his dockets, the different dockets, whether it's education and so on. And then, of course, you've got Ruto, very well known, goes without
Which
saying.
Ruto?
Ruto, the single T. I've said...
Ruto William.
Ruto William, yes.
Right.
Yes. I've said the double T Ruto, i.e. Isaac Ruto, will be back in Gideon. He's not going to split that vote. He's going to be in Kanu, according to my crystal ball. Of course, Ruto also, there was that sense that he was owed vote from a particular block. And then you've got Raila. There's no need to say too much with him. He's got the Baba factor. You've got Mudavadi. He's got the sense that he's a safe pair of hands. Waigoro is a darling, and of course she's a woman, maybe something new and different. Duale, the Somali community has been... very aggressive in getting into political positions, no doubt. Then you've got Sonko. He's got the youth appeal and the rags to riches story. So very aspirational. You've got Kifuza. He's known as progressive, especially economically. You've got Mutua, Alfred Mutua. He's suave, quite likable, but a lot of aesthetics and PR. And then you've got Martha Karua, strong and international material. I didn't know what to say about Joho.
And Kiraito?
Kiraito, yes, he comes in.
I've got Kimani on the line.
Brought Joe into this discussion?
Kimani had called in earlier. Kimani, good morning.
Morning to you. Thank you very much.
Kimani, you're calling in from, you said Ongata Rongai, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a crystal ball with you as well, Kimani?
As far as I'm concerned, my background is that I was in Form 1 when we got to second.
Mm-hmm.
And, at one time, I was a campaign manager for an MP.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kenyan politics, simply speaking. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Kenyan politics, simply speaking,
Yes.
is a kind of votes do not count.
Votes do not count.
Yeah, the counters of the votes.
Oh, we lost Kimani, but thank you. So he's saying the counters of the votes are what counts.
So it's predetermined.
It's
and he's talking
predetermined.
about
At
the
what
idea
point
of
did we
free and
actually
fair
lose
elections
faith?
being elusive.
We lost faith in our electoral system.
Well,
Because this is what he's talking
because we've always done the blame game in Kenya. What's happened is the loser always says the numbers aren't
Yeah,
right.
well-
And there's always going to be a loser, but that tends to be, his contention, and it's given airtime and so on. It's a shame, as opposed to, just gracefully conceding. We do get that. And then what happens is your followers and your voters believe that.
They believe that.
They believe it was unjust.
And
But
yet-
somebody's got to win. And whoever wins, they always say, it wasn't free and fair.
And now we are saying, let's not have a winner takes it all. So let's not having
CT was
all
asking-
of you guys are winners. So let's find a way of accommodating all of you. So why going to an election? Let's just have that boardroom thing that we're talking about.
I want to have an all-inclusive government, is what you're saying, and
So
bring
all
your
those-
views and be
all
able to
those
sit at the
people in
table
that-
and be able to share.
All those people in the crystal ball, let's just shuffle them around in a boardroom and say, pick. So you'll be the head, and then you'll be
And
prime
then we
minister,
can-
and you'll be deputy.
we can do it.
We can give you this ministry. You look good, so you should be in the tourism ministry. You speak well. You should be in foreign affairs.
CT was asking how Joho came into this conversation. You seem to have a soft spot for him.
No. I was bringing up Joho because I've heard him say that he'd like to be in the ballot. And he has risen to the point where he's the ODM vice chairman. Remember, ODM is
Deputy party leader.
Is the deputy party leader of ODM, right?
Who's
He's
the chairman
Raila's
then?
he's Raila's deputy in ODM. He has a strong national position in a strong political party that is countrywide. So therefore, if he has actually said, I'd like to be president, and it's about time that we start looking south and start seeing, or east, however we look at it, east or south, southeastern, and say the people of the coast as well deserve a place up there.
But they're not charged enough. When I say charged, I mean politically charged.
Coast people are not charged.
This crystal ball has its own kind of. It doesn't turn. It doesn't
what
turn
I'm
in all
saying
directions.
is when there's any disenchantment with elections, you don't see the coast throwing up a
Raising up
fuss
arms.
as you do with other areas of Kenya, say Western or Nyanza
Just
and
state
so
it,
on.
my dear. Say.
So
Say.
you don't see that. So if it's the idea of inclusivity, I'm not saying they won't be regarded, but there's other priorities, for lack of a better phrase.
You know why ODM has, one of the reasons why ODM has a very strong presence in the coast is because ODM goes to the coast and speaks their language.
But you see, you don't have tribal
don't-
tensions at the coast that you do on the national level, like you do up at the Rift Valley, let's say, and with, say, before BBI, the Kikuyus and the
What's
Luos.
tribal tension within the coast?
You don't have, how can I phrase this without sounding politically incorrect?
Remember Pwani Sea Kenya story?
Yeah,
Remember all that
yeah.
vibe?
But you see, that was
Remember all
against
the
Kenya as a whole.
Sisi watu wa
MCR and
Pwani,
so on.
right?
MRC.
And it's a push for recognition. It's a push for a space around the table. It's a push for a seat in the national table.
That's disenchantment at the highest possible level.
Good
Yes.
point. Good point.
Very strong. And that's why when ODM goes there, it speaks their language and in fact, City told us the other day, ODM has a stronghold of the coast.
Right.
So at a stronghold of the coast, and the deputy party leader of ODM, which is a stronghold of the coast, is from the coast. That person.
Can we sell him on a
let's
national
think about
platform?
It doesn't quite work that way, my brother. It doesn't
How does it work?
It works this way, okay? There are people who can be sold at the level of an MCA and you will be successful. We try to sell you as an MP, it may go south. There are those who can be sold as an MP, it will work. Try to sell that person as a senator or governor, it won't work. And by the same token, you get my logic.
Right.
Yes.
So like
I
coming
don't
coming
think
from
intuitively.
Nairobi governor to national, it may not work.
Well, I think it's clear that there's certain attributes that you possess, even as an individual, that allow you to stay at certain level of government. Like you said, now, if you propose certain names, and you say this person could do well at this level, and then, as you begin to rise up in the ranks and you say, no, we can't now ascribe, to that. And so I think then it is from that we now select these. It's clear that, if we can do it here, it's clear that other people who vote along or make selections along these lines, those are the things that they see as well. So you're looking at voting a character into government as opposed to what this individual can do or how loudly they have spoken or what kind of traction they hold at this particular point. And so these are the people that we put into power.
The powers that political parties have, there's something called endorsement, okay? If a political party holds sway in a particular area and the leader endorses you, the likelihood of you getting that seat is almost 100%. Now, if someone is in charge of a national party and they endorse you at the coast, you will get it. So the endorsement has nothing to do with the individual standing. It has to do with the person who's endorsing you.
But that's still an individual who's passing on to someone else. It's still an
Not a
individual
party per se.
who's passing on their character. Could be through this, living vicariously through this other individual that they're endorsing. So it's still a character thing.
I wasn't actually disagreeing with you.
All right, there we go.
This is my man on the ground.
Yeah.
0719-012-600 0719-012-600. We are live streaming as well on Spice FM KE on YouTube and Spice FM KE on Facebook, and also the conversation is heating up on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Would like to know what you think. 0719-012-600. Let me ask you guys, do you remember how many candidates we had in the last election, in the last general election? How many people were on the presidential ballot?
Last election? No. He knows the numbers, so tell us.
No. I actually don't remember. I was actually asking honestly because I know there were many. And apart from the top two, the others were not going on tribal politics. The others were going on other issues. For example, Dr. Akuru Okot, what did he stand for? And he was in the ballot.
I don't know what it stands for, but the people of Kenya didn't seem to agree with him.
You see, because of that, because of the
Because
box.
there was no endorsement of character per se.
Yes.
Nobody really knew who
No,
he
he was endorsing himself. And
Yes, he endorsed himself. He didn't have
Peter
any kind
Kenneth
of
also
political
stood
power behind him.
And he stood for something.
So this is the danger that we have. So here's somebody who may have had fantastic ideas on how to move this country forward.
We didn't give
but
them a
because we
chance.
didn't give them a chance, because there was no
hold it.
powerful character
Hold it.
behind
Hold
him
it.
that
What
gave him
chance?
this kind of
To
endorsement.
listen,
What are you people discussing?
to listen to
To
them.
be in power, not
An
just to hear what
opportunity to enter
listen-
kindergarten.
No,
This
no,
is
no.
politics.
To listen
What
to
chance?
them. To listen to them.
Don't give
If
people
you-
a chance to run the country.
No,
It's not a lottery.
No, to
exactly.
listen to them. I'm actually chance to listen to them. If right now you're saying you don't know what he stood for, it's
Right.
because
So
you didn't listen.
to what it
He
was that
didn't. He
was
didn't have
saying.
a platform to speak on, because he couldn't afford it. So if you haven't made money for yourself, how are you going to make money for the country? I'm sorry to say, simply put, that really is, the mentality of many. But it's also important we point out the two competing narratives I see at a national level in the run-up to 2022. There's the hustler narrative that's coming through. We all know that Ruto is the hustler, which of course appeals to the hearts and minds of people. It's very aspirational that you can make it. The rags to riches story really sells in politics. People love to see that. So there's the hustler, and he's pitting himself up against sort of dynasties and people who were born supposedly with a silver spoon in their mouths, and of course he'll gain the support of the masses being a hustler. But against that narrative is also the narrative of we can't have another Kikuyu or Kalenjin at the top, which is the tribal inclusivity one. So those would be the two competing narratives. It'll be very interesting to see how well it's framed when the campaigns are happening and what it communicates to people. We've got a call on the line.
I've got two callers on the line.
Go
and,
ahead.
this is Nicholas and Gethi. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
That's Gethi. How are you, Gethi?
I'm all right.
Yes. What are your thoughts this morning?
I have to make three brief observations.
Yeah.
One is that as Kenyans, we have been making a big mistake. Every time we have some good candidates and we believe are good, because we know they wouldn't have the clout or the numbers, we ignore them.
The tribal number.
And I realize the panelists are making the same mistake.
Always. They always do. Apart from me, of course.
During the voting, if you know a good candidate, for example, in 2013, I thought Kenneth was better than the others.
Yes.
But
I
because
thought
people believed he couldn't win, they didn't vote for him.
Because
So
they
what we
didn't know
should do-
him per se.
What we should do, whenever we have a good candidate, let's give him votes even if he loses. That will encourage other good candidates in future to come up.
It's a very
come out
good point.
And vie for this thing. The other thing I want to observe is that 2022 is the last time I believe these people are going to corners. We vote one of them, whether it's Ruto or Mudavadi. But after 2022, I see a revolution coming, and we'll clear all this garbage.
All right. Gethi, thank you very much. And I also have Nicholas on the line. Gethi, you can stay on the line and hear what Nicholas has to say. Nicholas.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I want to talk about Gideon aspiration for 2022 election to be president. Yeah. I think Gideon is dreaming. Yeah, Gideon is dreaming because if you the statistics is that the people of Baringo will not vote for Gideon.
The statistics.
Yeah, my own statistics.
Okay.
All right. So, what are you
Yeah,
basing your statistics on, especially? Are you from Baringo, Nicholas?
Gideon Moi is only popular with I think about 40% in Baringo.
Okay.
So, yeah, his own people don't like Gideon. And if, even in that endorsement, the endorsement was I think it was organized by Quack elders of the Kalenjin. Yeah, Gideon was endorsed earlier by the Kalenjin elders.
Okay. So he's been endorsed before as well, and this is just another endorsement as well. City, you have something to ask Nicholas.
Nicholas, I just want to ask you something. It's clear you have strong views on the matter, but and you clearly seem to imply that there are other people who share your sentiment. But to begin with, what is wrong with someone dreaming to be something? Is there anything intrinsically wrong with dreaming to be?
There's nothing wrong with dreaming. Huh?
Yes.
But then you see when you are dreaming, you should dream for something that you can see it coming true.
So what you're saying is that someone should dream along the dream lines that you have set, and then when there's along those lines, then he'll be fine.
Yeah. So Gideon is only popular in Baringo by about 40%.
Nicholas, in your
and Isaac endorses or supports Gideon. No, Isaac Ruto.
Isaac may support Gideon. I can see Isaac may support Gideon, but it will not make much difference because the people of the Kalenjin community are going for Ruto.
I think that's what the papers and so on are saying. But we saw Ruto really struggle to push Jubilee's candidate in the Kericho by-election, which was very telling. Also, Ruto's backyard, who is the MP there now? I think that was very telling. We've got to really read into grassroots politics and not follow dominant discourse on national papers and so on.
Ruto's candidature for the governorship.
Ruto's candidature, absolutely, Buzeki. So we're seeing cracks appearing. No matter what people are saying, there's cracks appearing, which then tells you Gideon has the support. That's another way to look at it. And also, leaders are still visiting his father. They're still going to see Moi. So there's a lot of respect there.
You know the reason why people of the Kalenjin community are going for Ruto.
Yeah.
Ruto is actually leader. You can't compare Moi with Gideon.
Gideon is Moi.
No, his father. Sorry, say that again.
I'm talking about his father. Yeah, Gideon wants to emulate his father, which he doesn't have all that leadership skills.
But we haven't given him the opportunities yet at a national level.
You know, Ruto is a bold leader. Is at some point is vocal. Yeah, Gideon. By the way, in fact, Gideon does not understand. He doesn't know even. He can't communicate the local language.
So are you trying to say that Gideon is just kind of going along with the foray of it all, but is not really entrenched in the process and cannot carry the mantle just because he's going with the name and not the way he would have operated had it been his father?
He was elected because of the name. The people want to retain the name of his father.
I think. I think at a national level, yes, Ruto seemingly has the support. The Kalenjin community will support him in the national level. But when you break things down and deconstruct locally where the votes are coming from, it's because they're supporting their Kalenjin man. But within the Kalenjin community, I've given you 3 different reasons as to why Ruto does not enjoy the support he purports to have. First of all, we saw with Buzeki, the backlash from that. Secondly, prior to that, 2 or 3 years before that, we saw the energy that had to be put into campaigning for the Kericho senator by-election. And the third one is the fact that even in his own backyard, I don't think he's a Jubilee guy. But I need to look up. I need to look that up.
On an independent ticket, actually.
Thank you.
I've lost Nicholas. I wanted to ask him the final question in who he sees as Ruto's running mate, because clearly he has Ruto on the ballot.
He does.
So I'd have wanted to know actually who he sees as Ruto's running mate.
You know, his sentiments are strong. He may not articulate them well, but he can't be the only one who has those views.
And it's allowed to have views. I mean, it's fine. What we're discussing this morning is the possibilities, the various possibilities and the views people have. Jerry is telling us about Kiraitu Musalia, and she's giving us her views and
Musalia
reasons.
Kiraitu.
Musalia Kiraitu.
No, Kiraitu Sonko. Come on.
Get it right.
Kiraitu Sonko. I'd like to see another female candidate actually emerge in this election. It's
Why
good.
have we not mentioned Charity Ngilu? And she has taken a stab at the presidency.
And I'm heading there. But I think Charity Ngilu, because she has started her work in Kitui, I think she should continue in the next election, run in Kitui. And then at some point, then come back later and say, look, I asked you guys to elect me as president. Look at my last 10 years as Kitui governor. This is the track record. And also, my track record as a minister.
Eric, people told your candidate
and all those things.
the same thing. They told Peter Kenneth, go for governor. Okay, go for governor.
And
Do it for some time.
And then the presidency, take a stab at the presidency.
But also at that time, actually, what Peter Kenneth stood for was very many other things that everybody else was standing for at the same time. However, the campaign messaging was youth and the future. Youth and future. He picked a 33-year-old as a running mate. Right? Somebody who had not run in public office before. He had run in corporate. He was actually a corporate leader, but then he came in and he had strong political views, and Ronnie Osumba was picked as the running mate. And I was like, it's even if they don't win this time, it's a good thing.
You understood politics.
It's a good thing to have them. I know what current kind of box politics we have, and I also understand what kind of out of the box politics I'd like to have in the future, which is where we are looking at not tribe. Not Ronnie Osumba the Luo, not Peter Kenneth the Kikuyu, but Peter Kenneth and Ronnie Osumba as
Peter
Kenyans.
Kenneth stood for in an election where Uhuru Kenyatta was standing. That was suicide. You was going to be a spoiler. It doesn't. There is what we would like.
Yes, and that's what
there's
was
a reality of our politics.
That's what it was.
How can a Kikuyu stand against another Kikuyu
And in the last election,
where you want a Kikuyu to
and
be
in
a
the last
president?
election, in fact, Ekuru Okoro was told, in fact, you are Turkana, but even your own Turkana, you don't even know your home. Remember? And we have to. Why must we reduce candidates into that?
Why don't candidates understand how our politics functions and tailor their whatever it is around it? Why don't
some of them are trying to run different?
Well,
and if you listen to Ekuru Oko, that's what he was trying to do.
They will
different.
continue running
If you listen to
different.
Professor Kalweyu, when he came from the US to come and run here, he was saying, I'd like to introduce a different breed. We also had another professor.
Wait,
what's his name?
You stay in the States and you're coming here to tell us how we should go about our
There
business.
was a professor from the University of Nairobi who was also in the ballot. I forget his name. I'll remember the name. He was also saying, look, guys, let's try and do it a bit different.
And he thinks we don't know.
That's how you think you know.
We do know, and we do so.
I think it's worth noting, sorry to digress slightly, that the two women leaders that we have are both from the same village. The ones who are going for the presidency in 2022. That's
Waiguru
and
Martha
Karua.
Karua.
So that's a
The
village
atmosphere in that village is good.
Gishogo. There must be something in the water.
That particular village was known for dissent.
There's no patriot.
Yes, its leaders, some of his earlier leaders were KPU.
Right.
Yes, so if you're talking about strong people, that village has a history of strong people.
And prior to that, it was Martha Karua, who was an MP there. And before that, Karethi, who was PS.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes. It's not your everyday
People
average.
have been there, the James Giros and the rest.
Yes.
This is the Situation Room. We've been discussing succession politics, succession 2022, succession Monday it is. And of course, now I'd like you to wind up your closing remarks. You said Sonko Kiraitu. Kiraitu Sonko.
Get the order right, yes.
Kiraitu Sonko.
Yes.
And Jerry.
Mudavadi Kiraitu.
I'm looking at a framework where we are looking at selecting
Here we go.
individuals. This utopian.
Here we go.
Perfect flowery.
Simple question. We're looking at a framework from which we can create yet another framework to build a framework. Yes,
based on
carry
where
on.
this country can go in a
Yes.
positive
Framework,
direction.
yes.
And that is how we should then select our leaders.
Within that framework.
Like Maendeleo Chap Chap, we start thinking differently. Maendeleo Chap Chap, Alfred Mutua, and somebody else who
Your two
should
candidates,
be a woman.
Eric.
Alfred Mutua and a woman. I haven't identified a woman yet. But
Jerry
Alfred
Thorne.
Mutua.
Why not?
But Jerry Thorne will
Actually,
come and give
now that we're at it, why not?
I tell you why not. Because she'll be looking for Kikuyu votes and I want a national leader. I want
Kikuyu are not part of the national vote?
No, she'll be
Why are you isolating Kikuyus,
She'll be
Eric?
concentrating herself on I'm a Kikuyu leader, can I bring in Kikuyu votes? And I'd like Njerithon to go and campaign countrywide. This is a Situation Room. Thank you very much for joining us this morning from 6 a.m. to now, 10 o'clock. My name is Eric Latif, Njerithon, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. We'll be with you again tomorrow morning, bright and early. Between now and 7 o'clock, some beautiful music, sugar and spice, and everything nice. 7 to 10 o'clock, you will have the adults in the room. Eric, Charles, not Charles, it's Eric, Emmanuel Kisiangani, and the Duchess of
Ikolomani.
Ikolomani. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it up.
Spice up your life.
Tonight.